Ladies and gentlemen, it's everybody's favorite time of the night, or perhaps I would hope so at least. It's 6:30. Let's call the meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Keep it secret. Call of the roll. Warnke.
Present.
Edler.
Present.
Fordyce. Present. Shear.
Present.
Hess. Present. Okay. On to number 4, approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Warnke.
Aye.
Edler.
Aye.
Just everything went blank for a second there. Fordyce.
Aye.
Schaefer.
Aye.
Hess.
Aye.
Very good. On to number 5, comprehensive plan update by Drey Kruse with Snyder Associates.
Hello.
It stands, sit, whatever you prefer. Cartwheels, whatever.
So I sent you guys our on the agenda a few slides. I did bring in a larger map. This is kind of our proposed, just because the one that I included, it didn't have parcel lines, and so I was even throwing me off. So I just feel like sometimes that helps you understand better what geolocation. And then a couple of the slides are just repeat you've seen before, but kind of just for recall. So that first one was what we're projecting for your population growth and what that kind of translates to for total housing units. So that 858 would be total from that would be built out in the next 20 years approximately if your housing rate matches that population growth rate. That's about 16 units per year, being kind of our reference point. I also included the pre-2019 comprehensive, so you had a comprehensive plan done in 2019, so I had the land use plan before that, the map, the comprehensive plan, land use plan, map, and then you had one done by B&K in 2021, and so that's in there as well, and then the one that we're proposing. Just again, just for kind of reference all in one place so you didn't have to go searching for these maps if you wanted to see where some differences were. So with our larger one, if you want to look at that one, a couple things I wanted to point out was back in 2000, before your comp plan in 2019, about 11% of your land area was residential and about 5% of it was commercial. So I didn't have a electronic version, and there's not parcel lines on the 1 and the 2 in your comprehensive plan, so I really can't accurately calculate percentages or estimate. So I just went to the B&K one from 2021, and that bumped it up to, and that was like existing, right? What's built, and then what they were projected growth areas. So that was about 79% residential, 14% commercial, and 6% industrial. So that's lumping all your different zoning districts together. Low-density in your residential is your low, medium, and high, and your commercial and highway commercial. And then our larger proposed one, there are some differences that I'll point out too, but just for reference, the way this draft map is, it's about 76% residential, 18% commercial, and 6% industrial. So there's not real significant changes. And I'll kind of explain the map behind that, if you will, in a minute. But some significant areas of change, if you want to compare our proposed draft to the B&K one, is we've removed a lot of the single family in that north tier, I guess, of colors, if you will. You have that the city kind of juts up north to the northeast and grabs where your sewer fields or lagoons are. So from there west over to the interstate, they had that all as single family or low density, excuse me. So I took that off. And then I also took out a chunk of the highway commercial over there. And then the other big changes were between that highway commercial portion and their existing industrial area. That was all medium density and commercial. And so I changed that to commercial and some single family. And then industrial, I have it split, I'm proposing a split for like a high and industrial, a high density and a light and a heavy, if you will. And then you'll see some high density right next to that area before you get, and then some medium density to the north, and then as you get into downtown, it pretty much all stays the same, except for on the south side. You'll see, I think it matches when I looked today, the 2019 comprehensive plan, but that it's larger than what is shown on the B&K map. So right now on the B&K map, that southwest corner is, has a little bit of, I think it was commercial, and then park, which, and their parcel of park pretty much covered just the existing park area. One of the things that we heard when we, from the online survey, kind of community feedback, and when we went to the parks board, was that fields, athletic fields are really important, baseball particularly, and they see that as something that the community not only needs, but would be a draw. So that parcel specifically, or that section of green, was expanded to about 25 acres. And the reason why I did 25 acres for that site specifically is because we feel like that's a good size for your community. That would allow approximately 4 fields, baseball fields, softball fields, parking. That would assume your baseball and softball, or both. And then a couple soccer fields. If you've been to, I don't know if the one in Huxley is complete yet, but it's very similar in size to what Huxley's doing, just for some kind of visual and a comparable community. And then on the east side of that road, we're proposing some mixed use and some medium density. And that's because you're seeing, a lot of times next to ball fields, it's just convenient to have that convenience store across the street or a Subway or something, whether it's a coffee shop or, some of the bigger towns, you're even seeing hotels located next to the really big sports complexes. So we wanted to plan for some commercial located closer to those fields out of convenience. And then that's pretty much the big changes that we're proposing. There are some rural residential subdivisions that are already maybe submitted or approved. I'm not sure the status of them, to the north. So really this proposed draft is just kind of to get some feedback from you, or get some thoughts on it. Maybe it makes more sense to leave that low density to the north that we took off, since you are seeing more development north of the current city limits. You can plan, you can label any land use you want, but development happens where the developer has, access to the land or control of the land. So if that's where it's going, maybe it makes sense to not take all of that out. The industrial, I think it's a wise to consider allowing a split on that high intensity heavy industrial and that light industrial, because right now you currently have kind of a anything goes. You have flex space in there, you have a gym in there, you have the concrete batch plant in there, you have 3 T's in there. I mean, there's so many different things going in there, and that's not necessarily bad use. That's common, especially in smaller communities. But I think if you split it out, it's going to give you a little more control over who's coming in and going where, and that's might be seen as a little bit of protectionist. I mean, it's always changeable, right? Somebody can always ask for an amendment to the comp plan. Somebody can always ask for a rezoning with it, depending on how it gets zoned in the future. But I just think that allows for planning and some more organized thought process of development as it occurs, as far as, not only the use, but how those uses function, your traffic, a concrete truck next to a gym isn't always the best. Not that they're next door to each other right now, but their proximity, they're close enough, right? And then another thing we also heard from the community we'll talk about parks more in a second, but is trails and a possible trail out to that area because there is the gym located out there. It's just gonna be, I guess, safer, not only safer, but more inviting if you have your trails and your sidewalks and your development kind of, I guess, increase in intensity, but not travel through that more intense industrial areas to get to some of those other uses that you may want to use daily use wise. So those are the biggest changes, I believe. Yeah. And then, we can talk about too, if you have questions about the map behind the number of acres proposed in each land use, a community the size of Elkhart, given its location to a larger metro area. Really, they project, I don't have my notes in here, there are some formulas and some assumed projections for growth, and that would be, let's see, didn't write down for housing, sorry. Oh, we did, sorry. But yes, by 2045, based on the assumptions of kind of being that bedroom community, although you are growing quickly, you could assume a reasonable amount of growth would be 70 to 90 acres of low density, and then 20 to 30 acres of that multifamily, medium density, high density, however that, ends up splitting. And that includes what you have today. So just kind of some perspective, it wouldn't be 70 new acres from today, but it would just kind of trickle up slowly as development comes in. One of the things with the old plan too, related to housing, all of your chapters is they have goals, and housing goals, you said that you were happy with all of them, so we're just gonna kind of update them and refresh them. I think we'll probably are going to include one that's specific to multifamily, not necessarily high or medium density or type, but just to at least allow the consideration and encourage some type of variety in housing to promote affordability and variety. And I know that one of the things also was it wasn't in the housing one, but it's in the landfill or the land use one, is infill and what you can do with some of the vacant lots in town. So that some of these goals and how we do your implementation and your priorities, we'll take that into account. There was a slide in there on affordable housing. Some of these things you probably already do if affordable housing is of concern. Not only affordable, but some of these items might encourage infill development too. If you make it easier to get that building permit or make some allowances for less parking or less landscaping or things like that. If you just make it a little easier, sometimes that encourages those infill lots to develop. I know a lot of them, at least on the aerial, are the back side or the side of an existing residential, those are owned by the same person. Sometimes it's just incentivizing that person if they want to sell, giving them that little extra encouragement for more housing. And then the same kind of calculations for retail, commercial, and industrial. It's kind of tricky because you don't want to assume too much growth because, you have a lot of leakage, if you will, or pull. People commute, they might do their business and their errands wherever their work is during the day. But really the assumed growth rates with the type of commercial uses and industrial uses and square footage and all these calculations, it comes out to about 6 to 10 acres of new commercial in the next 20 years and about 8 to 12 acres of industrial in the next 20 years. those might be more, again, these are conservative. Yeah, I could see that changing or being more, I would not be surprised if it's a quicker increase or growth for those types of uses, just because of your proximity to the interstate. And you already have some industrial area that's, some of it's site ready, some, you have your utilities are already out there, so that could be, but I think it's always better to play it safe. There'll be recommendations in the comprehensive plan as well, so like, kind of do a check every couple years and like where you're at road wise, and if you need to change any of your policies or make any changes to the comprehensive plan or zoning or anything like that. The last thing I wanted to touch on too is parks. So we were the parks board, a couple months ago. And we had this kind of recommended service area for parks. Most of your parks would be considered neighborhood parks just because of the size of them. And so that blue circle represents a quarter-mile buffer. Really, your previous comprehensive plan projected about 20 acres of parks, which you're at today, if you assume everything that's labeled park. So, which you don't have park open space, so your cemetery is included in that. Your lagoons are included in that just because they're green and it's not separated. So we might separate those out, like open space versus park, so park and recreation space. But I know that you do have some park, at least verbally agreed to that would be in the future subdivision. Developers are aware that you need more park space in the future. Plus that 25 acre ball field area, there's other things you can do in that area. If you don't want to put all those fields in, there would be room for like a new play area and play equipment. That also assumes, that 22 acre also assumes the land on the north side of the church over here. So just kind of some context to that. And then we did a proposed trails and park map for you. Slide 11. So really, we're proposing a trail. This is not final, but out to that, again, the industrial area, because 3Ts is out there, you have a gym out there, there's probably other businesses I'm not aware of that people want to access. So is the safest place along the road, or I think our first public meeting here, somebody pointed out where I think it's a water line that you suggested. And so that's very doable too, because you can, as development infills between the existing city and that industrial area, you can line a road down, or you would have a road on it or adjacent to it. And then you're exactly 8 miles to a trailhead to the Chautauqua Trail in Bondurant. And the closest trailhead over in Ankeny. So we proposed one to the south, and then I can't think, is it 55th or something like that? It goes almost, you might have to take a jog when you get down, but that would be like county or Bondurant that would do that jog. But just future planning, and then again, you'll probably, the trail needs in front of the daycare needs finished, and then making sure we're considering trail or walking path connections up as development occurs to the north, and then really far out there, but I showed it, that one going off the city limits to the east. That would be if you wanted to go all the way over to Chautauqua Bottom, somehow coordinate with the county future planning and get across the river. Those are obviously like way down the road things, but things that you want to have in mind as your city develops and grows, especially with a lot of the residential development that you're getting on the northeast side of town. And then that green circle where all those trees are, we did get a lot of feedback that it would be nice to save those trees and have a park up there of some type, whether it's just completely passive with whether there's a walking trail, but save some of the trees. So that's why that park is kind of designated up there. So again, these are all things that were, just wanted to get in front of you for consideration. as we are continuing to draft the plan. And those are, yeah, the biggest differences are what I already pointed out on the land use map, and then I should point out the 2019 one. That newer park, Prairie Point Park, they had, that plan show, your existing comprehensive plan did show a soccer and a baseball field, and large enough park area for that, which we'll probably still keep. We will still keep because it's not necessarily an either or. You can do both, but I mean, again, there's money involved, and population involved, and so just making sure that it's on your radar that both sides of the town need to provide amenities for everyone, so it's accessible. So maybe you do still have ball fields up there, or expand that park somehow. But so that's just kind of, if you have anything you're like, oh my god, don't show this, let me know. Or if you think of things, you know, as things come up during the week, I'm like, oh yeah, later. We can always talk about it, email, I can come back, we can talk to Katie, anything like that.
Yeah.
So it's probably longer than you wanted to talk, sorry.
Good information.
Council, any comments or questions?
I think it's a strong starting point for the future land use. I know we're working to bring the folks that have industrial park ideas. There's a couple different owners now, and then Kimberly bringing them all together sometime in May to kind of have a discussion and walk them through kind of some of these proposals, get their inputs on what they would want to build and where, and see if that lines up, and then try to make adjustments before we finalize anything.
Yeah.
And
I think too, you know, one of the things that specifically came to mind about, you know, some of those rural developments that are residential specifically that are already happening to the north. You know, really the process isn't any different. You know, you're gonna have to go through that annexation process for a lot of the land. You'll have to go through a land use rezoning no matter what, right? Because it's gonna be ag zoned or whatever the county zoning is. And then in the industrial area is very similar. So I don't disagree with planning it and kind of matching that up if we can now. It makes sense to take some of those steps out, but it's not prohibited, I guess.
Yeah.
If we have something designated that doesn't match exactly. So
just kind of looking it over, just kind of what they've talked about in the past. I can see some areas where they're gonna wanna ask some questions about specifics, and but yeah, we can discuss that after we've all met and kind of went over what their ideas were and what their thoughts are. So
Could you help me with the definition of what a high density residential would entail?
well, okay, thank you for asking, because that's something else I wanted to point out. So your existing comprehensive plan does not, I don't know if your zoning code does, but at least in the comprehensive plan, usually low, medium, and high will have a density range suggested. Usually high density is 12 to 15 units per acre or more, depending on the community. I've seen that cutoff go. That's kind of what I see, very typical. And usually medium is like 8 to 12.
So essentially that'd be like apartments. possible.
Yeah, it
And medium would be
depends
like
on
townhomes,
how much
possibly.
land they have, how many units you're putting in a building, things like
I was
that.
gonna say, so you're talking about both, 'cause I was gonna ask, is it
Yes.
lot size or is it
Yeah, so
how much
it's
you
both.
pack into a building? So
Yeah, and then some of the goals get into that too, is like, it's really gonna encourage your housing type, right? So,
because we do have a prohibition against anything over 30 feet tall for the fire.
yeah.
So
So essentially you wouldn't have anything any taller than that for sure, but might still be high density depending on the size of the lot, and you have 2 or 3 3-story buildings or 2-story buildings, depending on how that unit type and what type of units they are too, you know, if they're.
so because the medium density, you're talking about your townhouses and
Yep, it's
such.
usually 3 to 6 low density depending on the community. So, but yeah, that was something else I wanted to check in about, if you want that defined in your comp plan, if it's, or, you know, it's not an absolute number, but it's a suggested range. So then again, it helps you make this, it helps the city prepare, plan, and make decisions into as development comes in.
Maybe this is outside the scope of a land use plan, but one thing I want to be cognizant of is I don't want people to feel like they're driving into a warehouse district to get into town. And, if we go, or if you go from full industrial to commercial to light industrial, it just kind of has that, I'm sorry, Gary, Indiana feeling, so apologies if anybody can be very.
Yeah, and I did have, contemplated some mixed use too, more mixed use out closer to the interstate. Maybe that's between the existing town and the industrial, maybe that's between the industrial and the highway commercial up by the interchange. If you do something like that, you can have, that mix of housing and commercial. It doesn't have to be vertical. I think in Iowa, Travis and I talk a lot and see it's very common that you have in a mixed use district that's not a vertical mixed use, and especially here.
Yeah, we're suggesting now that our municipal partners use the terminology mixture of uses versus mixed use, because there's very few developers currently interested in the vertical commercial first floor residential above. So we're promoting the cities use the terminology mixture of uses that allows you to mix the uses on a single parcel or within that area versus doing it in a single structure. So maybe it's commercial facing the highway or the road in town with that residential back behind it, similar to what you would see on the west side of Ankeny, where they've got where Hy-Vee is there on Oral Labor, where you've got that commercial that fronts on the state and Oral Labor, but then you've got the housing and the apartments that sit behind it.
And the comprehensive plan won't get into that level of detail, but it's definitely, if those are things that are important to you, we'll have, a priority of the land use chapter, or in the implementation section of the plan, it will say, evaluate your ordinance, your zoning ordinance to consider X, Y, Z,
Okay,
Very good.
thank you.
I have a question. Does anybody like myself down on the council be able to have eyes on this kind of plan and proposed developments and anything?
I don't see any issues with it, as long as, take it with a grain of salt, that things are subject to still change and whatnot, but yeah.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, we'll load, there is a project website, and so we'll load
Through the
this
city
up.
or through Snyder?
Well, it's hosted both, so like we do the content on the website, but they have a QR code, and I think they have a link from their Facebook page somewhere.
Okay.
And then we'll talk to Katie and the council about potentially doing an open house or something when we're more, before it's approved, but more refined and decided.
So but that would be a place to keep track of where it's going and how it's going.
And you can always reach out to City Hall for copies of whatever you need to. They can help you out with that, no problem.
I was so bad bugging Katie all the time.
She'll get back to you when she can.
She
Yep.
she knows that work to do.
Yeah. No, appreciate it.
If nothing else, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
On to number 6, you guys are welcome to stay if you have to go, whatever you need to do. Yeah, they're locked in middle of things.
I think they've got one more. We're gonna.
Yep, I believe you're correct. Yep, my apologies. Number 6, citizen hearing and other communications. We will come back to letter A, Polk County Sheriff, if they happen to pop in as always, and council, of course, if you're okay with that. You've never said no so far, so. On to letter B, Scott Drey, our fire chief. How are you, sir?
Fine.
Excuse me.
She's got a new fire station with a bunch of new iron in it in that comprehensive plan. Nothing short of $15 million, and I'll be content as hell. We had 15 calls of service in the last month, 10 of which were medical, 3 fire, 1 rescue, 1 hazmat. The association, which does most of our fundraising, we submitted a grant to Prairie Meadows for, give or take about $40,000 for new gear for 10 of our members. In addition, to try to sweeten the pot and try to convince them that we were really deserving, I added in there that the association would buy a $6,000 extractor to clean the gear. Right now, we utilize a washing machine, which is not appropriate, but it's what we have had. An extractor, essentially puts a whole lot of G-forces on the material to extract out whatever impurity we manage to find ourselves in, so. Haven't heard anything, but I did submit that, trying again. I've done it in the past and, we got turned down, but we're gonna try again. So, we hosted the Pinewood Derby 2 weeks ago for the Boy Scouts, as we've done every year since COVID. And a reminder, the Easter Bunny is coming to the city park on April 4th. So, other than that, that's all we got to share for now. If I had something more, I forgot.
What is your total count up to with volunteers or staff or whatever, roughly?
Well, to put it like this young lady said, I don't like the term volunteers because it has a negative connotation, so we're paid per call.
That's fair. Excuse me. Yes.
And I think we're at 13.
Okay.
Good number.
The hazmat call, do you have to coordinate with someone else? Are we self-contained for hazmat response depending on?
Hazmat call, that was a natural gas odor, so sometimes natural gas LP fuel spills are considered hazmat, nothing of any real big significance, but
No leaking rail car?
no. I prefer that they
Move.
get on down the line. I served my time with the train derailment, I ain't ever doing that again. No, thank you.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? I don't think so. Thank you as always. I appreciate
All
it.
right, have a good night.
All right. Letter C, any public comments for things not on the agenda? Mr. Adams?
Ron Adams here. I got a question. How come, out at the East Park that the parking lot was not paved, but it was put in rock? There for the handicap, they got quite a ways they have to walk when they park out there. That was brought to my attention by someone that's handicapped. I just wondered how come there wasn't a parking spot or two paved a little closer to it. Anybody, any reason for it, or just?
We can look into that and follow up with you. Off the top of my head, I don't have a reason for it or know of a reason for it.
And second question, are we gonna have a questions and answers for the two running for council? We've always had in the past, and I was just curious.
Yep, so Katie brought that to my attention as in her administrator report as well. She's probably gonna share that later this evening. I know you had brought it up as far as questioning about it. I know Tony had expressed interest in it as well. We hadn't had anybody else reach out, but that's not to say we could not hold one. I know for the last two general elections, or the general elections that we had one. I can't speak to the last special election. I know we had one, but I can't recall if it was based off a request, if it was hosted. It's irrelevant, doesn't matter, but by all means, yeah, we are going to have one. I think we're waiting to nail down an exact date on it. It's going to be next week, either the 23rd or 4th, if I have my dates correct. I might be off a day on that, 25th or 26th, excuse me, whatever that Wednesday.
Okay,
Wednesday,
I was just
Thursday.
curious if we're going to.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty informative.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm wide open, so whatever.
Yes.
So, yep, we'll, you two can coordinate with Katie and we'll finalize the date on that. We'll get out public, get out the communications and everything.
Yeah.
It's gonna be similar style to, the city's not hosting it, if you will. We're just providing the space. We're not getting involved. We're not doing anything as far as, we're not.
They've only done it a couple different ways in there, and usually have the candidate set up and then people ask them questions.
And that's kind of what we're suggesting. What if you two want to set something up amongst yourselves, that is completely fine. The city is just providing you guys the space.
Usually
Since
the
there was
candidates,
interest.
depending on who they are, they have the good alcohol on one side and the other alcohol, and sometimes they'll have some go-go girls or something. Something draw attention to them.
Well, I know we had food trucks for the last general one, and more people came to the food trucks than actually came inside here. So there's that. So
So you're saying we should bring sandwiches?
again, moving on. Thank you.
That's all I got.
Hey, Ron, there is 2 handicap paved parking spots in the park on the north side of the parking lot.
But they're rock.
No, they're in the paved section.
I was just looking at them. I've gotta go get my eyes on it. It's hard to tell from Google Maps, but I'm pretty sure they're paved.
You can
But
see the blue parking signs.
yeah, that's what I was thinking
There's
too.
two parking spots on the north side of the paved.
We can
parking
go
I'll
lot.
tell the one that told me, they were curious, cause they've been out there and they
I walked
just
by.
wondered how come the rest of that wasn't paved, so.
Yeah, I take my dogs around. I'll walk around the pond, so I see those every night. So
I'll take your word for it.
yeah, they're out there.
Yeah, I'm looking at them right here. I had forgotten because I do and don't go out there that often, but yeah, right as you pull in, there's 3 or 4 marked spaces and there's like there's at least 1 handicap space right there, if not 2. So,
Should be good.
no, thank you. Chris.
Scott Town here,
Yes, sir.
resident since 2009. My questions kind of pertain to topics of the last meeting, and which pertain to water, potential water bill and sewer bill increases up to 12% for water, 8% for sewer. And, that was all based on, the usage being down by 6% for last year. Well, as you all know, we have higher water bills than all the surrounding towns in the area, and some of which include trash and recycling. And we're talking about raising those costs. And there's fixed incomes in this community. The elderly that maybe use 1,000 gallons. Okay, so this is some of my questions that I have. Is pertains to that. How are we justifying those costs? Because, or I should say, what other creative ways, as the one lady was presenting a report, to say that we either need to cut our expenses or generate more revenue. I don't feel like raising people's bills is an excellent way of doing that, especially when we've had a historical tax abatement. We've had, since this administrator has been in position, we've had increased payroll and benefits. And one of the things that was mentioned in the last meeting was, she's working really hard to cut expenses, and I don't think that these things fall into cutting expenses, whether it be tax abatements or increased payrolls and benefits. So my question is what are we doing to cut expenses and or other creative ways to increase revenue besides raise people's bills? And I'm not getting, worked up. These are legitimate questions. It doesn't really make sense that we've had all these tax abatements and there was really no reason for that, because people will move to Elkhart if developments are happening, if there's commercial developments happening, if there's residential homes happening. In when COVID happened, there was a huge increase of construction. So what are we doing to create or have creative venues for revenue besides taxing people more?
Yeah, I try to seek out as many grant opportunities as possible. I'll add that in. I definitely do speak with our financial advisor often, and I ask her the same question because our general fund is very tight. Looking at, for example, our workers' comp, we're looking at trying to go with a different provider to get a lower price. Trying to diversify our funds as much as we can. We have cut some expenses from the proprietary funds. There are some line items that, for example, operating the new water treatment plant, you just can't cut some expenses like liability insurance on that. That's going to increase because of the new facility. I'm definitely trying to find ways, but we're not alone. A lot of other cities are struggling with the same challenges.
When I was on the council, we were running in the same thing. We had to buy mower one time. So I suggested we put the mowing out for a bid. And the mowing came in cheaper by 1/3 of what we were paying, and we didn't have to buy a mower.
Yeah, and I think I did, I thought about that recently with the cemetery mowing too. Maybe we can look at ways to be more efficient in that sense, rather than having the guys mow all that land. Maybe that's something we could contract out. We are looking at, you know, if there's any services we can share with other communities as well, that will save us. Another thing we've mentioned recently is, you know, with the public works guys, their duties, as we look for a certified operator, we currently use Tom Thorpe. He is certified in water and sewer. He has a grade 4 license, and we've used him for several years, but if we could find somebody that would be willing to get certified and serve in the maintenance role as well, once Ron and Rick are, you know, retired, that would save us money as well.
So another question I have about this is on payroll, you know, we've got full-time city maintenance. How are we justifying 2 full-time city? What constitutes 2 full-time city maintenance guys with benefits?
Yeah, so their schedules are very full. You know, recently they've been spending a lot of time at the water treatment facility, pushing snow, road maintenance. There's lots of things going on.
Sewage Lagoon's a big one too, that takes up a lot of their time, I know that,
Right.
up north.
Yeah, Scott, I share some of your concerns about
I mean,
the cost
think
on
about this.
on
Yeah.
payroll, but for the two streets, 2 maintenance guys, you know, Ron and Rick.
Yeah,
So, and Scott, you know, brought up a big one. When they're working on the sewer lagoons, there has to be at least 2 people there. And I would encourage them to bring their part-time guy with them
Yeah.
too, just to be eyes on, because if something bad happens out there,
sure.
the 2 guys that are in the you know what, literally,
Yeah.
are gonna be able to make a phone call.
Yeah.
So there's some of that. This water treatment plant, trying to be diplomatic, has bugs to be worked out of it.
Yeah.
And they're constantly getting alarms, you know, that
Yeah.
go to their phones.
Yeah.
That it's very time consuming. And Scott and I have talked about this, you know, offline before I was on the council, you know, there could be some consideration to how their hours are set up. Do they need to work the exact same hours all 5 days a week, or is there some staggering of hours?
You mean
I
Brad?
think- Or Brad, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
said Scott.
Scott, yeah.
I was wondering.
Oh, yeah.
I was too, so.
So the water bill and the sewer bill thing, I mean, it's already an outrageous bill compared to other, you know, surrounding cities and towns that, like I said, it doesn't include trash and recycling like other towns. So to even consider raising that seems ludicrous.
Yeah, so going back to that meeting that you listened into, she talked about the expense debt ratio that has to be required on
Yeah.
that, and those projections are available if you wanna see them, so we have to maintain a 110, which is 110%. Those raises, I think for the next 3 years, were pre-voted on 5 years ago to get caught back up to those. So there's really not a lot of flexibility because there's an ordinance in place that requires those raises for at least the next 3 years. And the table that she showed us from a rate standpoint puts us in not quite the middle of Polk County. I would say we're probably in the upper middle of
Oh,
Polk
yeah.
County. We're not in that top quarter. We're probably in that next 30
Yeah,
to 50% range.
And with that price range, you have to remember, other towns have their trash and recycling into that water bill.
Yeah.
So if we tack that on to our water bill, we're out of this universe.
Yeah, and some of it, and I think it's a good conversation, but for sake of time, tell me to shut up whenever, but.
Yeah, we've gone past this.
That's
We tried to stay near
That's
that,
all right.
but
The main thing is catching up from the past and fixing and repairing a lot of infrastructure has been a big part of that, because there was years, in fact, recently, there was years that we didn't maintain the 1.10 ratio. So those expenses, or the expenses exceeded the revenue that were coming in, and one of that, you mentioned the 6% decline was from losing Pizzetti's out there, so the budgets were based on Pizzetti's being there, and Pizzetti's closed up and left. So that threw the budget ratios out of whack for that year, and then there has to be catch up the next year, because at the end of the year, we're not allowed to be below that ratio. From a positive standpoint, just this year in interest, since Katie and Deb found that our accounts weren't earning enough interest, so from 24 to 25, the city had an increase in revenue of $30,748 just on earning interest from our money that's sitting in places that it needs to sit. from the previous year was, 7,319. So there was a pretty huge increase in revenue there that Katie and Deb brought to the city, which has been extremely helpful. But yeah, they're working their asses off to cut as many expenses as they can while still finding ways to pay. We're gonna be doing audits like we've been talking about for years. Those audits can cost anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000. And we're cognizant, Scott, because when we raise the water bills, I pay the same water bill as you do, and Johnny pays it and Jill pays it. And it's not an easy decision to raise costs. It really isn't. But at the end of the day, there's obligations, there's water pipes, there's sewer pipes, there's things that are broken that have to be fixed. They have to be operatable so that the DNR is not on us and that the citizens have the services that they're paying for. So I know we've talked about a little bit. We've had initial conversations of looking at that minimum usage, correct, at the last meeting or the meeting before maybe, and trying to figure out maybe there's a better way to do it so the minimum usage is more in line with 1,000-gallon users versus the 3,000-gallon users.
Venues of revenue, you can offset having to increase people's bills. I don't understand.
That's
why
where
this
that's where that
has to be.
30,746 comes from, and we're having, we should have some industrial ground, conversations and get some stuff broke on that. The
No
gas
tax
station's gonna
abatements,
be
right?
opening. There's no industrial tax abatements right now.
But the funds are online and they're accessible online, so I think,
Yeah, they can
That's
apply
not-
for them, but they may not get them. We've stopped all the residential tax abatements.
And-
There's no
and-
more
I'll let you,
residential.
if you've got any
so-
other points, I'll let you finish.
No, that's it.
By all means, Scott, if you've got anything else, please send it in. We're over the three. We try to stay close to it. Thank you for bringing those concerns in though. Please send them to us. We can look into them before we can get you additional answers as well. So, no, thank you for bringing that to our attention and voicing your concerns tonight. Always. Were there any other public comments this evening? Okay, public comment session closed. Thank you again, both of you. Moving on, number 7, the consent agenda. Council, was there anything you wanted to pull out or look at or talk about? Before I give you the opportunity, letter L, just as a reminder, the council meeting times and dates and everything are not changing, they're reverting, if you will. Third Monday of the month, but we're gonna do 6:30, based off of feedback that I did receive from you guys, from citizens as well. Third Monday of the month at 6:30. Of course, that'll be subject to any holidays or anything, federal holidays that we need to adjust, and that'll be communicated accordingly, so. That's the only thing I wanted to point out.
I want to pull out letter C, there's a claim to Snyder Associates, as was last month, so I'm gonna abstain from letter C.
Okay, we will then, we'll just approve that one separately, so we'll approve A, B, and then D through the remainder, and then we'll approve C separately. That works for council. Is there anything else?
I just had a quick question, for Deb or Katie. For the January reports, we had the software issue for getting those aligned. So did you come to a root cause on that? or-
Yeah, so there was payroll. We were doing payroll as a general ledger batch. And we switched to a purchase order batch so that it would be automatically on the claims list. But that wasn't it didn't do so well.
Okay, so what we
So we
think,
got that, I believe it's working now, so.
so is that based on the numbers issue that I had?
No, your IVR's issue was you were a pre-note.
Okay. All right. Okay, but we feel confident with that.
Yeah, the
We've
last
got
payroll.
Okay.
Okay, if nothing further, motion second to approve the consent agenda with the exception of letter C, we will do that separately.
Motion to approve the consent agenda minus C.
I second it.
Warnke,
Aye.
Edler,
Aye.
Fordice,
Aye.
Schaefer,
Aye.
Hess.
Aye.
Okay, letter 7C consent agenda, motion second to approve that.
I motion to approve letter C of the consent agenda.
Second.
Second to Schaefer. Warnke,
I will abstain.
Edler,
Aye.
Fordice,
Aye.
Schaefer,
Aye.
Hess.
Aye.
Very good. Okay, on to letter 8, number 8. Discussion items, letter A, stormwater improvements project phase 2 and 3.
So this was placed on the agenda for discussion prior to item 9A. I would like you guys to discuss and confirm your preference in moving forward with this project. before we issue an RFP for the engineering services.
So, yeah, one of the things I wanted to bring up on this was, well, Mr. Todd brought it up as well, but when we looked at some of the increases that would have to take place in order for this project, specifically the stormwater minimums, I believe the number was 750 and some change, all the way up to 19 and some change. That made me go back and really take a second look at the whole thing and the idea of it. And, you know, we've met as a council, we've talked about the CIP, we've talked about the flooding concerns in the 2 areas of town listed. The issue becomes, from a cost standpoint, you know, we discussed going after that $500,000 grant, and the fact that we're gonna miss the first window, but we could apply again in the fall or apply again in the first part of next year. But that still left at least 1.2 or less of the project, up to 800,000 to 1.2 of the project potentially, that was gonna have to be paid for by increases and going out and bonding and all the different stuff. So one of the thoughts I had was, looking at the CIP, if you pull it up, everything is pretty much on the west side of town, and it's water line replacements, sewer line repairs or replacements, or adding new ones because the ones we have are failing. It's offsetting the flooding issues. And so I reached back out to Katie to kind of, as we're doing this comp plan and we're looking at costs and we're looking at water bills and we're looking at all the things that we keep discussing, not wanting to increase, maybe there's a path to making this project all part of the same project and doing it down the road, i.e. giving us time to raise the funds to do it over the course of time. And then if we're gonna rip the road up to do, I'm keeping this as brief as I can, if we're gonna rip the road up to fix or the ditches or the right of ways, whatever you wanna call them, people's front yards, for God's sakes, if we're gonna rip that stuff up to do stormwater improvements, we need to make sure that we're overlapping with the water pipe replacements or the sewer replacements or things, because it makes absolutely no sense and wastes a lot of money to rip things up twice to do jobs 2 years apart. Plus, I think it opens it up to different funding sources. So I know Katie had reached out to then Julie, correct? With some ideas or some thought processes, and you put together a pretty nice email kind of summarizing, you know, what you've seen some other communities do. It was general, but are you okay with sharing some of that as far as like how we can look at this project potentially as less of a, well, let's fix the stormwater problem, and more as of a, the word revitalization, I think, was in your email a couple different times, and kind of give us an idea as a council of what your opinions are on doing those larger scale projects and raising funds slowly over the course of time to do them potentially.
Yeah, so I got Travis Thornburg with us and me as well tonight, specifically for this conversation, because he's familiar with the comprehensive plan, and he also works with communities on this type of thing as well. He works with Polk City, he works with Gilbert. I previously, prior to coming to work for Snyder, I worked for city government as a city planner for almost 20 years. So I brought him to kind of be able to discuss the consultant side of the table, right? Because all my work on this has been before Snyder. So it totally makes sense from your side of the table, from the city's perspective, to group as much as you can into that funding, because right, it does not financially make sense to come in and repair. One way to do that is through, you know, TIF, essentially. I know that's right, that's getting some people will then get property tax abatement for a little bit with that, but it's paid back to the city in a rebate form. And you have to go through a whole process to do that, but it does.
Are you talking, sorry, specifically like setting up new tip zones then, or what are you?
It would, because
Okay.
in order to have the tip zone, you have to do like go through the
Urban revitalization.
urban renewal, urban revitalization. You have to, you know, you can do it for economic development purposes or a slum and blight, depending on how you do it. It allows you to have different paths of funding and projects. So, but yeah, it does make sense to group those together and really kind of get your ducks in a row, if you will. So, and Travis, he's done, like I said, he worked with comprehensive or capital improvement plans and helps, we're working on Gilbert's right now, and he's done this with Polk City more than once, so.
Yeah, I think the biggest key is understanding where you get value. Is Elkhart or the NPO? So that's a huge
Do you want to
avenue.
explain that for 2
So
seconds?
Metro Planning Organization, so that's the Des Moines metro area, has a bunch of member communities. And they are basically the arbiters of much of the federal funding that comes into Central Iowa. So what I will tell you is a lot of the communities we work with, when you sit down at the presentations at the MPO, you see the Snyder logo all over the place. But basically, we help a lot of communities. So think about the Highway 141 stuff going on in Grimes, that's MPO money. DART is almost exclusively funded through the MPO anymore. That's how they keep their rates significantly lower than what they would be. But a lot of the partner communities work through that stuff. And so they work through those different funding sources based on what you're putting in. So TAP is a very, very common one in this part of the country, particularly a federal aid source, particularly because we love our trails. So TAP stands for the Transportation Alternatives Program. And basically it's, are you providing a service that separates vehicular traffic or reduces vehicular traffic by providing bicycle lanes, pedestrian facilities, those kinds of things. STBG would be standard surface transportation block grants. And there's a lot of acronyms, but those are the two big ones. And so STBG is regionally significant transportation projects, which I think your proximity to the interstate would help with. Your proximity and presence of industrial facilities probably would drive. But there's all sorts of things through IEDA, and depending on what you're doing and what you're using, you can be really, really strategic in that. You know, for $200,000, you can add a trail to a project that may unlock $500,000 in funding. So there's opportunities, particularly as a member of the MPO, to work through some of those funding sources. And I think you're thinking about it in 100% the right way, because what we also talk about with our smaller municipal clients and the folks we work with is economy of scale is a huge deal. Right, and it's really difficult for communities of 1,000 people to work in economy of scale because you just don't have the scale. But if we can figure out a way to work through a 5-year plan to save up enough money to do a whole block, that's going to be better than piecing it out 300 feet. So I think you're 100% thinking about it the right way if you do it that way, and I think there's a whole lot of opportunity. I apologize, I'm not super familiar with the demographics of Elkhart, but the other thing that a lot of communities in Polk County specifically don't have opportunities for is the LMI. Because I don't know if you're familiar with the low to moderate income regulations in this state, but in Polk County in particular, we have some of the highest LMI thresholds in the state. And so depending on what the income demographics of the community are, that's an opportunity that this community may have that a lot of others don't if you qualify for those things.
Yeah. And that's kind of what prompted that conversation, and I wanted to bring it to you guys tonight. Katie did as well, because as we look at tearing things up, like I said, or improving things, I know the comprehensive plan, she's got some proposed trails on there could be some overlap. And then we've had business owners come to us and want more parking, and it's been prohibitive, according to them, from opening new businesses in town, which would bring alternative funding sources that we wouldn't have to raise rates and things like that. So, or option 2 is we continue to move forward. We send out the RFP for phases 2 and 3, like we had intended, and then try to hit that deadline to get it submitted for that grant, which I think would actually be the October deadline now, correct?
Yeah.
Because we're gonna miss the May. So we'd be paying money to put the RFP together, right? We voted on that last time that we were gonna enlist the services to get all that put together, to go out to have the plan, or to pay to have the plans drawn up, I should say. I don't know if that's worth doing at this point, if maybe we can make it into a bigger project.
I want to talk about that just a little bit from a logistics standpoint. Last meeting, we did award proposal to, who are they, Simmering and Corey? Okay, I can't speak for the rest of the council, but big reason why I voted yes on that was specifically to have 2 bites at the apple for that funding. Because we're on the hook with that company right now, right?
We don't have an agreement signed or anything.
We haven't signed an agreement yet?
There is no agreement.
Okay, so, cause that, I said, this is a great discussion, I wish we would have had it last month, is the thing, so. And if we've got correspondence that's going to be relative to agenda items, we can see those before the meeting too, so I can come a little more prepared. So the email that she referenced, she had worked out for you on.
Oh, it was just it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to speak out of turn.
No, go ahead, go ahead. Yeah, go for
It
it.
wasn't really information preparing for
Okay,
this.
Yeah.
okay. So
It was just asking if, since they were gonna be here, if they would participate or if they had any
Yeah.
experience in the discussion, because it was more of just one of my ideas where I had thought, okay, how do we have this conversation before we get down the road of committing to paying money and going to, because Jordan made that comment at the end of the last meeting. Did we come to a consensus or not on whether or not you want us to start with these plans? And those plans were gonna cost $30,000 to $40,000, and we'd all agreed, well, no, we didn't come to a consensus because there wasn't an agenda item. And that's what really started that ball rolling down that. So we're gonna pay $30,000 or $40,000 to have a plan drawn up that's gonna make our water rates and sewer rates and all those things go up. Maybe we need to put the brakes on this
Okay, like I said,
a little bit.
my concern was that we did have an open vote and did award this proposal. And again, like I said, for myself, I wouldn't have voted yes if we're only gonna get one shot in October. Because I think we need the lessons learned from the earlier shot. I had no expectations that we'd get it on the first try, but.
So Jordan mentioned we weren't gonna get we wouldn't, if we didn't tell him last meeting, yes, to drop the plans that night, we weren't gonna get the May shot, we'd already missed it. He said it wouldn't give him enough time, so we were already pushed because he had told us that too late to get it on the agenda. We were already pushed to the October shot, but we also could reapply next spring again, because it's every 6 months that it comes up. It's not an all or nothing that never happens twice, so.
Okay, so if we don't have an agreement with the vote that we did last month, then do we need to redo that process again in the future? Or, I mean, I understand they were the only people who submitted to your RFP to do the grant writing,
Redo the process to,
to ask for, to employ someone to write the grant, to pursue the grant for us.
if we decide to do that again, yes.
Okay.
Which we could decide tonight. We could decide all of this bigger picture talk is pointless. Let's continue, let's pay the money, let's have them write the grant, let's get it submitted in October and go for this specific grant for that specific project. We could do that. That is what the agenda item is for. That's what 9A is for.
What I will tell you too is particularly in the current climate, right, the cities are struggling with property tax reform, general fund availability, all sorts of things that I think you all are probably very familiar with. Because the state legislature is kind of doing whatever the state legislature is going to do, frankly.
Right.
What I will tell you is in the current grant writing climate, professional services typically are not wasted. So even if you were to put out an RFP that says we want to take preliminary plans, or we want, as long as, I think it's important, and I read through what you guys have for an RFQ, and I think it's really, really well done for what you're trying to accomplish. Because one of the things you have to be careful on is if you're going to seek reimbursements for professional services through federal aid, you have to do it in a very specific manner. And one of the key aspects is cost cannot be a factor. And that's the way your RFQ is put together. So I think that's very promising. And what I will tell you is the further along your concepts are when you apply for these grant programs, the better it's going to be. So what we always tell our clients is if you're going to do a roadway project and you haven't studied it, it's almost not worth applying for, because these MPO programs and these grant programs anymore are so competitive. So I think another thing to think about too is, do you feel that the concepts or the plans or the exhibits that you have are going to supplement your grant writing, or would it be worth going out for RFQ and basically putting in that RFQ saying, we want a concept or a preliminary design, and then we want to hold off and then understand what the funding sources are. I think that's a way you could do it as well.
Is there a way to ask for project, we'll just use our terminology, projects phase 2 and 3, but also alternatives that include replacement of the water pipe or the new sewer pipes or the curb and guttering to provide parking? Or is that, can they do alternative proposals within that, or is that cost prohibitive?
What we will typically see on an RFQ is if you're looking for that, you would say, here's what our main project is, give us your qualifications for that. But this is the other things that we're looking for, so provide us with less information, but some context on it.
So we could at least get some concepts drawn up, even if we're not gonna use them for 1 to 5 years in theory. Granted, costs change and things like that, but okay. So really, okay, sorry, we're not on 9A yet, but, so that was the conversation, and that's what the email was about, Tony, was just seeing if they'd be willing to kind of meet us in that conversation, so that we knew whether or not, because they might have come and said, no, it's really stupid, just do phase 2 and 3, it's, don't even think about making it into, I didn't know that for sure, and I wanted you guys to be able to ask questions, obviously, and get thoughts on that as well. So what does everybody think?
I wish we would have it sooner before we decided last meeting, but I think it makes most sense.
Yeah, I can only bring them up, the ideas that pop into my head when I think of them, I wish I would have thought of it sooner. Well, it was- yeah.
I think the thing is, we're, to the conversations we were having earlier about looking for other funding sources and where can we get money from and how can we make these things happen. When we hear that something pops up, we don't want to sit on it. We want to make sure we've really considered something as an idea and whether or not we can run with it. And we did that. And it felt jumping the gun a little bit, but we also were like, hey, we know we need to do this project. This has been important to the community. This is something people want. Here's this opportunity for some funding. It feels uncomfortable, but we should probably proceed forward. I agree, and we talked about this before, don't dig a hole twice, that's just silly. We know a lot of these projects all fall into the same general bucket or the same ditch. And so it doesn't make sense to only look at it in the scope of this if we know it's this. And so as uncomfortable as it might be to say, okay, we're gonna step away from this potential funding opportunity, our ducks just aren't in a row yet. And rather than,
I don't think we have the ducks yet.
yeah, well, they might be swimming in the stormwater, I don't know. But I think if we take our time and we think this through a little bit more thoroughly as far as what a bigger scope project could look like, to your point, then when we do submit, it's as rock solid as it can be and as obnoxiously thorough and all the things that they're looking for. And as long as we don't know that every 6 months this will continue to pop up. We don't know if the government's gonna go insane and just be like, no, we're gonna stop giving you money, period, forever, because we just wanna watch communities die, because that's kind of what it feels like they're doing. But if we assume they're going to continue to do this every 6 months, there will still be another opportunity. Or a different opportunity pops up. We don't know what's on the future horizon. So I think it's prudent. I appreciate that your brain thought of it a day late and $1 short, but not even $1 short, just a day late. And so yeah, rather than jump because we're afraid of missing out on some funding, I would rather do it right.
As long as we don't have any financial liability.
Yeah, I will check.
On the vote from last month.
Right, I will confirm with them.
I'm fine with that, but.
The one problem you'll have over here, sewer and water do not run together.
Excuse me, say that again.
Sewer and water does not run together on this side of town.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of
In the
different
alley,
things.
water's in the street, so you're
Correct.
gonna have two separate deals, so it's a little different than Main Street was.
Yeah, the thought more is that we're gonna affect an area where the drainage passes
I
through.
get it.
If it passes through both of those areas, then it would affect them, and then the parking part of it as well, like finding areas, and if that's gonna change the drainage, then if we're gonna pay parking potentially or somewhere, but anyways.
To the exact point of having knowledge like that, discovering things, rediscovering things, so we can, back to your analogy, find the ducks, get the ducks in a row, and then get them pointed in the right direction, so.
And maybe we wanna take the interest money that we earn every year and pull it out of the general fund and put it in an account that earns interest towards the bigger project in 5 years because it allows it to mature. I'm hypothesizing, but there may be opportunities for grants that way, there may be opportunities for donations that way, there may be opportunities that we just haven't thought of yet, so.
Good talk.
Any other comments or things to bring up on that? Otherwise, we'll consider that discussion part closed. Okay, we're good. Informal motion in a second to bump the heat a little bit.
Yes, both.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I think it's quite comfortable.
On to, number 8, letter B, discussion item minimum assessment agreement with PARSHVA LLC.
So I sent out an update to you guys, regarding the minimum assessment agreement. The assessor's office actually reached out to me, they were looking at the property and they wanted an update of what's going on. And they said that they would need an amended agreement from the city council at our earliest convenience, just to adjust the date of when the valuation starts. So the current existing agreement has it starting this year. It hasn't been built yet, there's no actual value on the land yet. And so that's what we're proposing, to move the valuation date to next year.
Are we gonna have to keep moving it in the event that they may not get funding or may not have funding yet, or may get funding but may not start for several months? Like I just see, and I feel like I want this project to happen. I think it's good for town. It's not that. I just feel like it's all outdated now. It's almost default now. And I feel like we need to go through it and update our agreement. I think our agreement is that they'll have it built by December 2025. Honestly, we're past that. Does that put us in the fall? Does this being out of date, does that put us in the fall? I mean, I just feel like paperwork needs a thorough update. Make sure we're in compliance.
And if the city council, if that's the city council's goal is to continue with this project, you can certainly go and update all the paperwork. I've been working with the bonding attorney and she never said that we are required to update it right now. It's what you guys want to do. So if you'd like a full change, full review.
Are you still talking about the minimum assessed agreement or?
Overall.
Okay, both.
The
Okay.
developer's
I just didn't
agreement
want to
and
get
the
lost there.
assessment.
Okay.
So, minimum,
I think we need to clean it up and do it new. Not saying that'll change anything, and that doesn't mean the project's not going forward, just that we need it updated so everything's accurate in current time.
Okay.
In my opinion.
And I asked Amy that too, and she said, we'll just wait on it unless you guys decide that you want to amend, take a hard look at the developer's agreement as well. So I will let her know.
Because there's a cost associated with it. So when we enlist the bonding attorney to go back through the agreement and update all the dates, that we pay for that.
I'm just
And-
worried about being in default because we'll pass all.
What do you mean by default?
Like that it's void because we're already past all the dates that we're supposed to be constructed by. We're supposed to have this one. That's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah, and from a development standpoint, so if we're talking about 8B still, the minimum assessed agreement, that specifically is a document for the county.
Right.
That if we don't change the date, then in theory, the $2.5 million valuation goes into effect on January 1st and there's no building. So we're being asked to move that to the end of this year. Because the building is perceived to be done by the end of this year, based on what they've told us. So that's this one. As far as the development agreement goes, anything that we need to change in there, and there's a lot of dates that are outdated now. I read through it again this weekend. That's not pertinent to the project until the bank comes back and says, we need an updated development agreement to execute the funding of the project. At that time, then we go and spend the money to do that, which then that money is then paid back to us through the minimum assessed agreement, when all that executes at the end so the city actually is getting reimbursed for those funds, which is good. But in theory, not in theory, but on 8B, the minimum assessed agreement, we just need to move the date forward so that the county doesn't start charging them tax on a building that doesn't exist at this point. That's really what that part of it is.
I'm okay with that. And
Okay.
do that, but I overall, it's talking about,
Yeah.
I think we need to lock in some other stuff.
because the minimum assessment agreement is a subset of the
Correct.
overall.
Absolutely,
development
yeah.
agreement. So to touch one, I'll
Yeah,
say
I
touch
told
one
you
without
that.
touching both.
You can, according to Amy Bjork, our
Yeah,
bonding
according to
attorney.
her, we
Yeah,
can do
because we
that.
asked her back in October when we knew it wasn't gonna be done by the end of the year because there wasn't enough weeks left. I had asked for it to be updated or proposed that we could talk about updating it. And she said, don't waste your money yet because it costs me money to do that. Wait until you know for a fact you've gotten the construction schedule for Seneca and then we'll do it. That had nothing to do with the minimum assessed agreement. That was the actual development.
But it's gonna cost us money to submit
So, yeah,
a minimum
change
assessment, right?
The minimum assessment agreement will cost a little bit, but not as much as the full development agreement would, yeah. So we can do it. I've been asking Katie for 6 months if we need to get it updated, and Amy's the one that keeps telling us not to waste our money and wait until we absolutely have the dates.
Well, I agree with not wasting money,
Right.
but I don't wanna be wasting any more time on this either. I mean, they are in breach of this agreement. I mean, we're going to say for force majeure, however that's pronounced, that the governmental shutdown that began in October lasted through the end of the year, impacted your ability to get this construction site down. And that's not the case. If they would have gotten their funding on September 30th, they still wouldn't have the provision of the development agreement that construction would be substantially completed by the end of 2025. So the city's already updated this once. Am I correct in that? Yeah. So it's supposed to originally have been done substantially completed by the end of 2024. There's already been a year extension. They're, from what I remember, they've asked for another extension on funding that we think is imminent by the end of April. And, how do we know that's any more imminent than what they told us in 24 and 25? I like gas stations too, but, I've been hearing this song and this since 1997, when I been in the convenience store. And if these people, if this group can't secure the funding, I mean, it's like, when I went to go buy a house, I had to be pre-approved for a loan. I mean, if they don't have the funding, they don't have the funding. If they have the funding, let's dig a hole and let's start construction.
I wish it was that simple, but they're getting close.
But, okay, but again, I've been hearing they're getting
Oh, yeah.
close for
They've thought
4
that,
months.
right?
So
Yeah.
how do we know that, I mean, I have zero confidence they're actually close. Because they haven't done, I haven't seen anything to produce that confidence. So,
That's right.
So I'm not in agreement of changing the minimum assessment agreement or touching the development agreement until we have something more substantial that, yes, this is a go. I mean, if it's not a go, then both parties need to come up with something else.
What has been the last update of the gas station? I know we provided a construction schedule, which is good, and that's, we're thinking about schedule stuff, but has there been any other communication from them about funding, securing the funding?
Yeah, I talked to Mo at 2:00 this afternoon. So Mo's the gentleman who's doing the development. The bank funding has been secured. They're waiting on the disbursement schedule from the USDA loan is all they're waiting on at this point. So all the revenue projections have been accepted. All the funding is in place. The bank is ready to write the letter to Seneca to get the project started. They've been waiting on the USDA since late October to provide the funding schedule, which unfortunately, because of shutdowns and delays, has just been taking them as long as they feel like taking. I think they're quite understaffed due to some cuts that happened before the shutdown as well. So it's his, he was not happy when they didn't meet their deadline last Friday that they had set, and he's hopeful by the end of March they'll have something, but he is 100% at the behest of the USDA at this point. But the bank that he is going through has given him their approval, it is funded. They just need the USDA's portion and the funding schedule to come through. So they remain confident. He has over $500,000 invested in the design of the project. They've already got the contractors lined up. There's only one that they have to redo now because the date got missed, obviously, this last week, which is the digging in the gas tanks. Those guys are a little bit further out now than they had suspected. But as soon as they can provide us with a concrete schedule, after the USDA sends them the funding disbursement schedule, they're good to go. So, go ahead.
Can't we ask, I don't know how this works, but can't we ask for some kind of proof or a letter from the bank? I know we can't, it's their bank, it's their country. Can't we ask for something for proof that it is being where they have secured funds, that we are good to go, we're just waiting on a few things? Is there anything we can do to show that, other than talking, that they have attention, they're backed up by
Yeah.
the bank?
And we can ask Mo to see what he's comfortable
I've
sending.
asked, the guy at the bank a couple of times, and obviously some things are confidential, but I would
Right.
definitely
But
ask
maybe
him.
Mo could
Yeah, it would
Like,
have to
give
come
us
from
something.
Mo, it would have to come from PARSHVA LLC, it wouldn't be able to come directly from the bank, I don't think, it's not our project.
Right.
I can ask Mo what he's comfortable sharing, I don't know why he wouldn't be, but that won't help us tonight, because it's tonight, but,
I'd be okay putting it out as another agenda item on Monday night.
how long can we delay the change of the minimum assessed agreement with your conversation with the county?
She said at our earliest, they said it was fine because they knew it was coming, that we were amending it, so she didn't give me a deadline or anything.
Okay.
Should we push it? So the 30th.
What would waiting a week and a half do as far as extending the minimum assessed agreement that wouldn't kick in until
Yeah,
January 1 of next year? What would waiting another week, would you guys need to wait that week to get him to send that? Because that doesn't have anything to do directly with the development agreement and the CIFs and all that stuff. I'm fine moving the minimum assessed agreement forward and changing the date to the proposed date. I think it was January 1 of next year, correct? Because it's something that needs to be done. But I can talk to Mo between now and next Monday and get a better update, or try to get an email from him with some more concrete if you like,
Can we move it?
in regards to the,
Can we move it forward with the exception or like with the understanding that we'll have something in writing before the end of the month that possibly that gives us proof that we are moving forward?
I can't make that promise for him. I don't know how long it'll take him to produce that, or what his lawyers will let him produce. I have no idea.
Well, I'm not comfortable voting yes, so I have something.
That's fair.
Concrete. I want to see, I would like some gas station, convenience station come in. Like something the community desires.
Right.
I mean, it has been desired for quite some time, but I want something more concrete. Push back. So I think it's time to push back a little bit the other way. And that'll help get things moving.
Can we push it to the 30th? Yeah. Or a special meeting?
Well,
Yeah.
sorry, I haven't spoke. I don't have an issue with going ahead and approving this, and I guess my reasoning behind that is, I don't want to be the thing that holds up the process. And I think when they reached out to you, it was in good faith that they believed that we were going to go ahead and approve moving it out again.
right.
To your point, we're not out a lot, going ahead and making that amendment and moving it out. I still think it's worth doing the things that you guys are looking for as far as getting additional information and confidence. I'm okay with it. I feel like they have been in communication with us as much as they could be. Anytime we've asked them for information, they have given it to us. If we haven't asked for that information, that falls on us more than anything else. At this point, we have never, I think, formally expressed any concern to them about this project or said that we were on the fence about it or that we were worried about it. So I feel like it would just be going back on our word a little bit at this point to be like, well, no, okay, now wait a minute, now that we need this thing, we're gonna pause. I don't like being that flippy floppy, that's not comfortable to me. I don't think saying that we're gonna push the minimum assessed agreement out means we're greenlighting everything after this moving forward. It's just us saying, this conversation is still happening, we acknowledge it's still happening, we also acknowledge there's not a building out there, so the assessed value doesn't match the numbers that we have originally put. So I thought about this a lot, because I knew this was coming up, and to be very, very honest, this is not in my wheelhouse, I do not live in this universe, but at the end of the day, with the information that I gathered, it makes sense to me to honor our word at this point, just because we have not pushed back to them formally at this point at any step in the process. And so I would like to go ahead and move forward with approving the assessed agreement when we get to that part in the business items section. But then absolutely, if there are people sitting at this table that have concerns and want more information from them and want more, then we need to formally go ahead and do that and ask those questions. We should not just assume that they're just gonna throw information at us that we haven't asked for. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. And I don't think this is a flip flop at all. I mean, this is, there is an agreement in place. And this is us expecting the terms of that agreement to have been met. And they have not. And if I understood Katie correctly, this assessment agreement it's not the developer who needs this information, it's the county. So when we get this to the county, it doesn't sound like we need to get it to them tonight.
Right.
You know, we've got time to get that to them. So I don't see, and again, the assessment agreement is a subsection of the overall development agreement. So I don't feel comfortable in approving one without us amending the primary document that it is a subpart of.
And I think that's all really fair, and again, we don't all have to be in agreement, and don't know how a vote will go if we
So,
go down the road of a vote, but,
so I just want to explain my
oh
rationale.
yeah, that's perfect, no, I appreciate that.
Anything additional from this side of the table?
I'm on the fence. We had to vote. I don't know which way I vote. I want the project, but I agree things need to be updated and things like that. I would like to see it be pushed back to Monday. Maybe I'll get some more time to talk to Mo, to discuss a little more. That's just my opinion.
I have no problem moving forward with amending the minimum assessment agreement. I mean, my reasoning is for really everything that Brad and Andy both said. I mean, the developer has spent over $500,000 into the development of this gas station. If that doesn't show you a very high level of commitment, I don't know what will. It sounds like everything that, all the turmoil, all the, everything that's gone, not wrong, but hurdles in his way to get the funding has been out of his controls and more of on the government side. I mean, to me, I don't see an issue or really an overall problem with moving forward that minimum assessment agreement.
I echo, I mean, not that I have a vote on it, but I echo everything that you guys are saying on both sides of it. I feel comfortable if you guys wanted to go forward with it, because at the end of the day, when we make a phone call, be it Brad, be it the city, be it whomever, when we make a phone call, either somebody answers the phone or they call us back. It's not, we've been ghosted for X amount of months or a long time. That being said, I do understand that the frustrations and frustration with me as well, that Tony, to your point, and, excuse me, Jill, to your point, as far as the date's come and gone, nothing's happened, nothing's really progressed. We grow tired of the update is there's no update. Get all that 100%. But again, to travel what you just said, Brad, what you were saying a little bit ago, Andy, as well, there's signs of good faith there, and I think that's worth something. So it's completely up to you guys. But we'll kind of work towards wrapping this up, and you can progress to 9B, and you guys can make your final decision at that point. But
I just want to add or ask, so we'll get to 9B when we get to it, but in terms of the actual development agreement, then Tony, you mentioned updating it. There's a lot of dates in there that need to be updated and amended. The goal there would be to get the construction schedule to make sure it's going to be done at the end of the year, so that we don't update it to the end of the year, and then it's like 90% done at the end of the year, and then we got outdated and pay to have it updated again.
Right.
So that was Amy's recommendation, is once we have the construction schedule, get it and then stick it at a date that allows the construction, because there could be delays in construction too, tornadoes.
Well, I was gonna say, is there
Acts
anything
of God.
magical about it having to be December 31st?
No, that's the point, is
Yeah.
we need, that's why she wanted us to wait for the dates for that. And that's why when I was pushing to get it updated back in October, probably bugging the hell out of Katie. Katie was like, it's gonna cost money, we gotta have Amy. I was like, all right, fine. We'll do what Amy says. This is the bonding attorney that we pay a lot of money to tell us to be smart and not spend. So that's where we're at. As far as the updating of the development agreement, we can vote tonight, we can do whatever, or whenever, on the 30th, sorry.
Yeah.
And we can ask her to update it and put the date as January, whatever, 30th of 2029 if you want to. But the point is, we were just hoping to get a concise set of dates before we did it, unless there's other things that need to be updated on the agreement outside of just the completion dates.
Well, there
Yeah.
are commitments there are dates in there that the city has commitments that it needs to make too. So all those need to be,
Every one of them needs to be
Matched up.
pushed, yep.
yeah, so I mean.
Oh yeah, all the payment schedules are changed, everything's
Yeah.
changed. And that's why it was gonna cost us, well, it ends up costing them through the assessed agreement, but costs us money to get that done,
But it
so.
shouldn't be as expensive as when we created it, right? Because it really just
Correct.
changed dates.
Yeah, it's
So
just
not like we're
hours.
making a whole new document,
No.
they're just going in and manipulating.
Yeah, they don't have to
Right.
change the urban revitalization or the urban plans, or none of that stuff needs to be there,
But,
so.
right, and again, I don't think that needs to be updated until
Yeah.
they come to us and say, we've got our letter from
Yeah.
USDA, yippee, let's go.
I am very optimistic at the sake of sounding stupid, but I'm very optimistic that by the 30th, we will have a construction schedule, but I'm also at the mercy of the things they're at the mercy of. But between now and then, I will work with Katie to work with Mo to get something from him that talks about the progress, outlines everything, outlines where we're at, and see if he's willing to get that put together for us. I cannot imagine he wouldn't be, so.
Does he ever like come to town and can he just like
He's
meet with us
been
and
here-
just say, hey, this is where we're at? And that would make it
Yeah.
feel better.
He was here right before Christmas to kind of give us an update, just short, and then I shared it at the council meeting that month, but I don't know when he'll be back in town. He drives through quite a bit on the interstate when there's not 3 feet of snow in Minnesota. He lives up north, so. But yeah, so I'll work to get that for everybody by the 30th, and then I'll keep Katie posted or work with Katie to get it. That's for sure, so. No worries.
Very good.
Thank you.
Great discussion.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, excellent
And I
discussion.
appreciate you working with Mel. That's that.
Tony's been hearing about it since 1996. I've been hearing about it since, yeah, I've been hearing about it since I moved here for 9 years. So I've been hearing about it for 9 years.
Well,
So,
Mike's probably heard about it long.
right, that's what I was just gonna say.
Pardon the fun, but the more you know.
Touche.
There it is.
I have to.
Touche.
On to number 9. Letter A, resolution 2026-21, a resolution authorizing the release of a request for qualifications for engineering services related to the phases 2 and 3 of the city's stormwater improvements project. Based off of previous conversation, how council would you like to proceed with this?
So last question on this, Katie. So is there a financial commitment from the city by moving forward just to see with this RFQ, to see what the plans that may come back would be? Is there any financial obligation? Are we paying for those plans, or is the RFQ submitted to us and it wouldn't cost us any money to look at the plans?
Are there any financial obligations?
Yeah, if we vote to move forward with 2026-21, are we committing any money to phase 2 and phase 3 of the project? My assumption is no, but I just want to make sure.
My assumption is no. I will check with Simmering and Corey
Yeah,
to double check that we don't have any obligation.
yeah, specifically to the RFQ part of it, not the
Right.
part for the grant writing.
Oh,
but
for the RFQ.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're not issuing.
correct. I just wanted to make sure we said that out loud.
Yeah,
and
if we're
this
not
is not a
issuing an
financial
RFQ,
commitment.
no,
Okay.
there's no.
So, well, is this RFQ really need to be called phase 2 and 3? Or are we asking for an RFQ for stormwater and sewer improvements on the west side of town? Because
And potentially parking and curb and
Yeah,
guttering. and
because-
That's what I asked earlier
yeah,
about.
because the phase 2 and 3 is really B&K nomenclature, isn't it?
Correct.
From those.
From previous projects, yes.
So we're not putting out an RFQ to ask someone to
No.
redo an existing plan. We're
Right.
asking for a net new plan.
Yeah.
So,
But we could, because V and K would likely submit their phase 2 and phase 3 plan and then provide alternatives. But the
Yeah.
plans that we would get from other potential engineers would be new. They would be their plans. So
Right.
we would
I
install
just-
To Tony's point, would no longer be called 2 and 3,
Yeah.
called
Yeah.
phase 2.
That's just our guess.
yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
2.5, I don't know.
Project
B.
Unify
Yeah.
or something.
Well,
2.5,
I mean,
yes.
Come up with a cool
I
name.
mean, say, whatever we wanna call it, I just don't think calling it 2 and 3 makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
We're just going with what we had.
Yeah.
I understand, but that's,
So
I know,
do
I'm
we-
sorry.
no, you're fine. It's, we gotta call it something, so.
So do we want to name it? Basically the question is, do we want to have people put together an RFQ for the projects as it relates to the stormwater improvements on, from those 2 areas? And then also ask for all the other stuff as alternatives, or do we want to just stick with this vote to look at just what the stormwater plans would be? Travis, you kind of helped me understand that the other day is that pretty standard for cities to ask for, here's what we're looking for, but also this, and this, or how does that usually come out?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can ask for concept designs and alternatives for really whatever project you describe. Yeah, so it's pretty standard across the board.
So do we want to try to,
Do we have wording developed?
exactly, that's what I was just gonna say, do we want to reword this,
Yeah,
or
rewrite it.
Right.
maybe we want to table it and reword it
I
on
would
the
say
30th?
let's table it and then I can come back with a new RFQ.
That might be better, that way it includes all the other potential ideas.
So are you thinking kind of like, at a bare minimum, we need this? And while you're got your pen and paper out, let us know what these three little add-ons would be.
Correct, if there's overlap.
Yeah.
Like if ripping this up to change the drainage for the stormwater presents an opportunity for curb gutter, sidewalk, whatever, or if it overlaps the water pipe or potential sewer, goes through an alley or whatever, then that would be what I was kind of getting at.
Okay.
So yeah, if you're willing to do that, that'd
Yeah.
be great.
I see the other engineer in the room is heavily nodding his head yes. and agreeing.
Fair enough.
Okay. So,
I mean,
Mr.
yeah,
Yes.
if you start throwing those other things in there, besides just the stormwater, you've totally expanded the scope of the project
Oh, big time.
immensely.
Yeah,
You've
yeah.
doubled it.
Yep.
If you start throwing in curb and gutter and all of that stuff with it,
100%.
you've tripled it at least. So it's a totally different project. It needs to be totally rethought of what you want to do.
That's why we had mentioned it might not be something that even starts until 2030, because it may require a specific fundraising threshold to be met before the project can even be funded. And
Delaying the stormwater is fine if you don't get rain.
well, that's been the thing. The last couple of years, there hasn't been as many, complaints brought to us about it as there was the previous 3 years. So it's not an easy thing to try to figure out.
yeah, and that doesn't mean the problem has gone away, but it's
No.
just, it's,
It
yeah,
comes in
it's there.
waves,
Right.
literally.
Wave on wave, yes.
Do you need a motion to table then?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna,
I move we table business item 9A to the next regularly scheduled council meeting.
I second that.
Warranty,
Aye.
Edler.
Aye.
Fordice.
Aye.
Schaefer.
Aye.
Hess.
Aye.
Goodness, moving from my cop servers up.
Thank you, guys. On to 9B then, 2026-22, a resolution approving amended minimum assessment agreement with PARSHVA LLC. Thank you so much. I have a feeling I know where this is going, but council, what would you like to do?
I move that we table 9B to be added to the special council meeting scheduled for March 30th.
Okay. Yep, that was the date. I second that.
Do you need any, I guess we can't, you couldn't like put any contingencies on because you don't know what,
no,
yeah.
let's see how that goes. I was gonna
Oh.
move to approve it, but we can wait to see how the move to table it goes. I don't care. That's fine.
Okay, either way. So with the movement to table, we've got the first, or the move, we've got the second. Warranty?
No.
Edler?
Aye.
Fordice?
No.
Schaefer?
No,
Yes.
Aye.
Okay. So not being tabled, so then back to 9B, resolution 2026-22, a resolution approving amended minimum assessment agreement with PARSHVA LLC. This would be a vote to approve it. Can I get a motion second for that?
Motion to approve resolution 2026-22.
second,
Warranty?
Aye.
Edler?
No.
Fordice?
Aye.
Schaefer?
aye,
Yes.
No.
Okay, very good. On to letter C, resolution 2026-23, a resolution approving an open records request policy for the city of Elkhart, Iowa. Katie, you wanna give us a little blurb on this?
Yes, so, the city's attorney recommended that we adopt an open records request policy formally. This will help staff and residents regarding open records requests with a policy to follow. And, there's a fee schedule that is assigned in there as well. I did use the legal services through ICAP to review the first draft of the policy, and, Brett Hinders, the attorney for ICAP, he reviewed it, provided some recommendations to change. And then, so I added those in, and this is the final draft.
And with the fee schedule, just to point out there, and council, I'm sure you've all read it and are understanding of it, but basically anything 30 minutes or less, no big deal. Anything 30 minutes or more, there would be a fee assessed to it based off of an hourly rate of either the clerk or the admin, depending on who is handling and facilitating the request. Just a little small little blurb to add in.
Yeah, so that is, I would say that's a very widely used, type of fee schedule for communities in Iowa, simply because state code outlines that they recommend cities offer the first 30 minutes for free, and then after that, they can charge.
Do we have the ability in City Hall to produce DVDs.
Yeah.
I saw that in the
That's
schedule.
true.
Do we
We
possess a
could.
DVD burner? Because if we don't, we might not want to have that as an option.
So
and
it'd
maybe
probably be
just
like
one
a
of these.
flash drive,
Well, that's
Well,
the
no,
other
the
one.
flash drive's a different
That's
option.
a different
That's
option.
$5.
You can have a DVD or a
Well,
flash
It
drive.
says CD data files. I assume there's a CD burner, but I do not know. I'm fairly certain I've never seen a DVD
Honestly,
burner.
I've
but-
never used a CD here, but
I thought you were gonna say
I just well, the standard. I just didn't want to offer it if we can't produce
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
we
So
can
if we
remove
could
it.
strike those,
Yeah.
if anybody has any objections to that, I didn't want to.
I did have a question though. In records management, there's a concept of native format. So if you get information via email and the information that's being requested from the city is that information, is there a cost just to simply forward the email on to the person?
I mean, that would be under 30 minutes, but
But, I mean, does everything need to be printed out, I guess is what I'm getting at, so.
does,
I mean,
well, the requester can request whether they want to receive it through email or a printed out copy.
So if it's under 30 minutes, and if it's available via email, you'll just send an email.
If the requester wants it through email?
Yeah.
Yes, we would send it through email.
So, because the only thing that jumped out at me was the 25 cents a page, because that just seems like that's a lot higher cost than what it costs to print out anything.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I did compare rates with neighboring communities and that's the most widely used
Yeah.
rate because,
well, I'm aware of that, I just always question it, because now I can buy a ream of 500 sheets of paper for $5.77. That's just a little over, that's less than 2 cents a page. And I don't know what the Xerox machine copy cost is.
yeah, we
but-
are charged for how many copies we make and if it's in color, black and white.
Right,
it's-
and there's usually a range in there, so I doubt it's 23 cents a page.
We can certainly check.
So, I mean, the quarter just, I mean, if someone wants, a document that's 50 pages long, that just seems, a little excessive for the cost.
Well, at that point, they can just get an email of it and they can print it out
If, I was
themselves.
gonna say, if it's available email, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I have no problem with the fee schedule that's laid out, that Katie laid out. I think if Katie says it's pretty standard in neighboring communities, then, if it's too expensive for someone to want to print out 50 pages at 25 cents a page, they can just get the email and go to some Photoshop place and
Well, they
print it out themselves, or do it at home too, yeah.
So, and then if I read this correctly, we are allowing for verbal requests,
So, yeah,
because the statute requires.
I mean, the city's required, any request we receive,
Yeah.
we are required to look into it and at the requester's inquiry.
Okay,
It's just this, having a policy in place creates more structure so that, say Marissa gets a call or she gets 2 calls so that she can have it in writing. She knows she has these 2 requests to take care of and then fill it out and it's done.
okay. This was years ago, Brad, you'll remember this, but this whole, it takes longer than 30 minutes to find a document I'm concerned with. I had occasion, I was not on the council, I attended a meeting and I wanted to see a document that had been provided to the council. This was one of the first audits that was done from the group from Atlantic.
Okay.
And I immediately asked the city clerk the day after the meeting for a copy of that, and she could not find it. It took a week before I got that, and the only way I got it is because Brad was nice enough to give me his copy from the meeting. So, I don't want to make it a long discussion, but to me, this kind of creates a bigger question of what we have in place for records retention policies. What records do we have immediately on hand? I would think if a citizen wanted to see something that's less than a year old, that should be well within the 30-minute requirement. If the document is more than a year old but less than 5 years old, then I was just wondering if a fee schedule could be based on the age of the document and the type of the document. Some documents, aren't going to ever be available to a citizen.
Correct, yeah.
And so you know, if it takes the city 90 minutes to find a document that's 4 months old, should the citizen really be charged for that? Because it seems to me that should be a document that's fairly easily retrievable. So those are my concerns with it. The policy itself's well written, you know, I don't have any problem with it. First couple paragraphs are a little redundant, but you know, all in all, it's decently written. I'm just, you know, have some concerns on the execution side of it. So, and in a records retention policy, I think is something that as a city, we should look at. Brad mentioned it earlier, you know, we want to do an audit, you know, and the date from 2020 has been mentioned before. Well, that's now 5-6 years in the rearview window. I mean, will all those records still be where they're supposed to be? You know, do we do any off-site storage with our records? Because, you know, when you guys gave me a tour of City Hall where stuff's kept, we got that little cubby area where we got a bunch of filing cabinets in there. God forbid if there's a fire in there, you lose all of that. Because if you do off-storage records retention, you know, if you store 100 boxes, they don't put all 100 of your boxes in the same bin. They put 2 over here, they put 2 over there. They spread them out throughout the length of the facility just for that purpose. If there's a contained fire in one section, you might lose 2% of your records, but the other 98% are involved. So if we're going to talk about records, I think we need to talk about records retention. And that's a much larger discussion than just this policy of making information available to comply with statute. But I think that's a discussion that needs to be had. And I've helped build records retention programs and schedules before, so.
Sorry.
Yeah, no.
There is through the state of Iowa, through the Iowa League of Cities, they have a retention schedule that cities are required to follow. So we keep that packet close by. And it outlines exactly how many years for in licenses, payroll, anything that we're required to keep. So anything digital, we try to save digitally and physical copies now. But in years past, I can't tell you, you know, it's probably all on hard copy.
Okay. So is the digital or cloud storage or?
Yes, it's on a shared drive.
Which isn't technically cloud.
No,
That's,
sorry.
Yeah.
So we have it on a hard drive.
It depends some of it's software,
Yeah.
accounting software, which is.
So Tony,
It's
when
backed up and.
you're,
Yeah.
so one of the things that it needs, I couldn't agree with you more about the redundancy side of it, because when we were doing the re-audit that was brought from 2022, I think it was off the top of my head, having Marissa finding things was a challenge. Trying to find paper copies, electronic copies, and things of that nature. She spent a lot of time looking for documents, well over 30 minutes. So yeah, that would go to your point there. In terms of working with Craig at that time, or at least we started the conversation at that time, but there was no formal policies adopted, and I couldn't agree with you more that we probably need to figure that out, because the G drive is our physical hard drive that is on location where the paper copies are. And there is no cloud backup. Because for the accounting software and all stuff, yes, that she just mentioned, the new part of the reason why we switched to the new city software as well is because it has digital backups and cloud backups and all that. But all the historical stuff would be saved on that G drive or a paper copy. And I would love to find a very low cost method of splitting some of that up and getting it off site. So
Who's Craig?
Craig is the IT guy, city's IT guy. Yeah. We just usually call him the city's IT guy. Sorry, I call him Craig. The one thing that tell me if I missed it, was as far as reasonable response time, did I miss that in this policy, Katie? I.e. somebody walks in at 4:47 on a Tuesday or 4:27 on a Tuesday, you guys are set to leave. Is there something in there about it falls in line with the city or what we're doing or busyness or workflow or anything like that that gives you a required response time, i.e. the citizen will have requested documents within X days?
I didn't recall
Hours.
seeing that when I read through it either.
I thought that might be good to put in there, that there's a limit in there of some kind, or did I miss it? Because if I miss it, read it.
Number 8, the custodian will make reasonable efforts to fulfill all open record requests in a timely manner in accordance with law. So
Okay.
it does say.
So it's pretty open-ended, but yeah, okay, that's fine.
Do we know, does chapter 22 of the Iowa Code speak to the time limit?
Timely, yeah.
I don't think there's a time limit
Okay,
for city officials.
yeah, I wasn't sure.
And it's gonna depend too, if we need an attorney to go from,
That's,
Yeah.
which I don't know, have we addressed who's gonna be on these? You have to have an attorney.
what types of documents are required an attorney to review before they were put out?
Probably confidential
Yeah.
regarding.
Okay, employment or anything like that?
I was gonna say, do we maintain any records that are under privilege to begin with? Because
Oh,
that
I
would,
think your payroll.
yeah, that'd be a pretty simple, no, I didn't talk about attorney-client privilege. So
We do, yeah.
Yeah, because that'd just be a pretty simple, sorry, we can't fulfill your request because of attorney-client privilege. Or that discussion took place in a closed meeting type environment. I mean, some of that's big, yeah.
Yeah,
But like I said, the one thing, basically it talks about when they can make the request. I can't recall if there's anything in here that says, that dictates when the response is required.
yeah, it was vague with that in a timely fashion,
Well,
so.
I'm talking about the code.
Oh, gotcha, gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha, sorry.
I've not seen it defined.
Yeah,
So are we, overall question, I guess, is are we in a situation where we're adopting this, trying it on for size and seeing what changes need to be made would be better than waiting to adopt anything at all? Because right now we don't have a policy.
I mean, even that's historically my opinion of things, is go ahead and get it rolling, and we can make changes as we discover we need to.
Because there are some changes and some efficiencies, but right now we don't have anything. I think we owe it to the citizens if they want to request information, we need to have a policy to make sure they can get it in a timely fashion. And if they want a DVD, we'll figure out a way to get a DVD. That's the way it's going. I'd be okay with moving forward with this, with striking the DVD availability. Personally, cause I don't want to buy a DVD burner. It will fulfill a very niche request.
yeah, I guess the only thing I would ask to be considered would be if a request comes in and if it looks like it's going to be something that they can't fulfill within 30 minutes, can we have some sort of standard communication saying, we've received a request, we are processing it. We are anticipating this will take us 90 minutes to gather the information. Get it to you, cost you $10, whatever it is. Would you like us to continue with your request?
Yeah, so that's towards the end
Yeah.
where we
Okay.
require an estimate of cost, we'll give to them before.
Okay.
And it says estimated staff time to process requests.
So that would serve as your communication then, as opposed to an
So,
email.
would you only do that immediately if someone came in with request?
I mean, I would think so, but it depends on the situation where I can call someone and they know where it is.
Yeah.
Okay, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
Yeah, we're looking.
I think we're there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, motion to approve resolution 2026-23. Resolution approving an open records request policy for the city of Elkhart, Iowa, noting the removal of the availability of DVDs for such records. Thank you.
It's a DVD/CD, just for clarity.
Well, they're in two different lines, but we can do both if we want to. I was looking at the little form that you have to do. There's two check boxes individually, but yeah, check. We can burn a CD, I'm pretty sure we can.
That's fine. That's fine. DVDs exclusively. Warranty. Aye. Heather.
Aye.
Fordice.
Aye.
Schaefer.
Aye.
Hess. Okay. Good. To letter D, resolution 2026-24, a resolution approving nuisance abatement.
So I informed you all of the process the city attorney advised we take to approve a resolution regarding the 3 properties that remain unresolved. They have received 2 notices from the code enforcement officer. So this resolution, if approved, would be to issue a third notice from the city attorney. And if those third notices are not complied with, then abatement will proceed on behalf of the city. And I sent out links with all those notices.
Council comments, questions, or move along? Do you guys want to have any discussion? You're welcome to, otherwise.
I have a question for Harrison. Thanks for coming tonight.
Can you hit the heater?
Yep.
Yeah, I
I'm
can't.
sorry. We gotta pop the heater down.
Okay, I had a question for Harrison. On some of the, it looks like you always cite, or you generally cite the Elkhart Municipal Code, but then I see you're citing something called IPMC. And then,
International Property Maintenance Code is what that is. That's a code section that you guys know.
okay,
So
because I did a keyword search for that, and I didn't have it come up.
it's in there. Pretty positive. Anybody have any questions about the abatement process or anything that I can answer for you, or you guys been through it before?
I'm waiting for the heater to shut off, so, I'm sorry. It's kind of like the train that goes by, you just can't hear anything for 30 seconds.
Could you put that stands for again? Right in IPMC. it didn't come up.
International Property Maintenance.
Property. Okay, there it is. It's not appreciated.
Yeah, most of them.
I'll be proceed with any questions or comments, and that'll be kicking off here shortly.
So essentially that if they don't comply after the third letter, we just go take their stuff and get rid of it, right? I mean, that's essentially what we're doing.
So they've had ample time.
Yeah,
When was the first notices, sorry, were, some of them were back in August, October, I think was the other one.
I would have to go back and look at you. I
Yeah.
remember each one of those, but it's listed on every single one of those notices. First, second, and I believe one of them also had a letter that I had to pick up in, it's because of weather. So most of these people I have talked to, some of them don't reach out, some of them do. And then we tell them that they have this certain amount of time, or if they needed extra time to let me know, and I'll work with them on that, but some people don't do that, so. But as far as abatement process goes, when we get city approval, I'll go back out, just drive by one more time, check on those items, take a picture if I need to. I'll send that over to the city, and you guys can provide that to the city attorney. And then from there, it goes through its processes with court, or we just go forward with abatement. And then.
But they have another opportunity to receive that communication,
Yeah, so
communicate with you, communicate with us. They still have, I saw in there, they still have the right to have the hearing with the city council.
Yes.
They can still have us come out and look at the property with them, all the things that we've offered, all the other property owners, just because they're at the third notice, none of that goes out the window, correct?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
yeah, if they decide to take care of it after the third notice, then they take care of it. And that's it.
When you say abatement, are you talking about physically going onto the property?
Yeah, that's what I'm not.
So would you have to get a warrant to do so?
We have to have the legal paperwork for the city, so that's what the city attorney's for. And then we show up with an officer and I'll stand there and point fingers, and they take items that need to be taken and haul them off. If it's vehicles, they do that. You have to hold those for a certain amount of time. As far as trash and debris, it just gets hauled off itself.
Okay. But you're still going onto private property,
Yes.
so,
It's in
So-
the city's code that allows that.
okay, but there's also provision in the code that where if a citizen doesn't want you on the property, they can say you have to present a warrant to come onto the property, correct?
Yes, and then we go through that whole process.
Okay. So are those,
It'll end up in the exact same spot that they're already at.
so,
So you've been through abatements before, is there is there the opportunity for conversation the day of? You show up, the hauler, whatever you wanna call it, shows up,
If they wanna start hauling stuff off while we're standing there, go ahead. If they, I can't stop them from.
yeah,
picking up those items.
I was just curious
Yeah.
yeah. Okay,
I've had people where we start doing abatement and we're picking up all the trash items first, and they're taking things and hauling them off on a trailer. So, and if they wanna do that, they can.
okay.
This question is probably more to the council, and Harrison, feel free to jump in on here. I've always had issue with the letters that go out that tell people their property is a nuisance. Because the definition of nuisance as it's outlined within the city ordinance is really a 5-part test. And since they're or statements, they're separate. But, you know, some of the stuff I see that calling it a nuisance, I think it's a little overboard, to be quite honest with you. And I think that's what causes some of the pushback that you get. Because it says whatever is interest to health. So that's 1. Indecent, 2. Unreasonably offensive to the senses, 3. Or destruction to the free use of property, that's 4. Or is essentially to interfere unreasonably with the comfortable enjoyment of life or property. And that's the 5th element of it. So, you know, if someone has an untidy yard and they have brush that's overgrown, you know, I don't see where it meets. I don't see where it's interest to health, indecent, or unreasonably offensive to the senses, you know, so on and so forth. So now, if you're telling somebody, hey, you've got a car in the driveway that's got 4 flat tires and hasn't moved in 6 months, you know, we've got a junk vehicle ordinance, and that's something. But generally, it seems like you tell people your property is a nuisance, and then these are the other code sections that apply. So, you know.
Here's the thing about junk. Something can look like junk, but it's usable. They may not use it every day, they may use it once a month, once a week, but that's where they keep it, that's where we keep it. You can't tell somebody if their stuff is junk. That's unreasonable, and it's ludicrous. That's, you know, it's retarded.
So, I mean.
And the city was in violation of their own code, sending letters and letters and letters until last month. And here's the
I
thing.
never did open up to public input, Mr.
Yeah,
Todd, thank you though,
the thing is, you were guilty of your own codes that you were sending letters out for.
which we
And
have,
until I said there was gonna be lawsuits, then you didn't clean up your stuff.
which has since been corrected
So
and everything,
we
and
set
again, I have
those
not opened this
guidelines
up for
for those
public
people.
comment at this time, thank you, Mr. Todd.
So, and some of these letters, we're speaking to people who had overgrown vegetation. So we're just coming out of winter, we'll be back in the fall, spring here in another day or 2. So hasn't winter taken care of that vegetation at this point? I mean.
Yeah, so most of the time, the process goes a little bit quicker, and it doesn't go all the way from the beginning of summer into the winter months, but it's just the way it's working, so.
Some of that vegetation, couldn't it be like somebody's asparagus patch or somebody's, it looks, or raspberries that could be too tall? I mean.
Well, that's the whole point of the conversations, like you get a letter, as someone who has gotten a letter, and then you have a conversation, and sometimes it's, oh, okay, or in order to make the asparagus patch, you know, more obviously an asparagus patch, you know, here's how this could look better. Like, the frustration, I think, at this point with these is the lack of conversation and the lack of resolution. Like, we've said from the beginning, we want to work with you, we want to talk to you, we want to have these conversations. If we're not getting any sort of feedback or response, it would be inappropriate in my mind to enforce code over here, but not over here. I would love for people to have conversations, because yes, as someone who has a number of different, you know, landscaping things in my yard, like if you were to send me a letter, it would be like, oh, you got a bunch of weeds, I'd be like, that is not weeds, and then we would have a chat. Like, you've always been very amiable anytime I've had to reach out to you. I don't think it's hard to get a hold of people. We've got our email addresses everywhere. Like,
Yeah.
there are ways people could communicate, and I want them to communicate. I want to have these conversations, because yes, one person's junk is someone else's not junk. I totally fall on board with that, and I want to be a part of these conversations, but if you as a property owner are unwilling to enter into a conversation with us, we have to continue to proceed with what we are legally obligated to do. I don't want to go to somebody's property and take out all their stuff. That's not something any of us want to do. Have a conversation. So yeah, sending out this third letter, giving them another shot, talk to us, let us know what's going on. I think it's appropriate, but we've been talking about this, I feel like, forever. And we have to do this. We have to continue to enforce this. We have received feedback that people want this. I just need people to talk to us, and I don't know why some people are so resistant to having that conversation, and hopefully these conversations are few and far between. I appreciate that in all the time we've been doing this is now the first properties that have popped up that we have to have this conversation. I don't wanna do this a lot. I'm hoping all the ducks are in a row, but yeah, if we need to change codes as we go because we have those conversations, we will. We have to continue to do this. We are required to do this.
So on the brush conversation on one of the properties in question, looking at the list of things, install visible address numbers on the house in accordance with city code, trim and remove all overgrown vegetation throughout the property, remove or dispose of pile of brush. So those are things that, winter, that could have been a garden, things like that we could find out if the conversation happened. But I looked at the one at the bottom, it said repair the truck in the driveway to an operable condition, remove for the property or restored in an enclosed area. I went back on Google Maps as far as Google Maps could go in 2019, and that vehicle has not moved since 2019, and all the tires are completely flat and have been since 2021. So if Harrison were to go back out to this property, or any of us were to go out to the property with him and look over this, I think all of the cleaning up things can probably be done pretty quickly. And at the end of the day, this one most likely comes down to that vehicle needing to be taken care of, right? That would probably be the one that would cost money, is to get that. So if we could have a conversation with that property owner, I think that's a pretty straightforward conversation. And as a community, I'm guessing there's probably people in town that would be willing to come help them remove piles of brush and get those things within code and clean up. This isn't meant to be the Gestapo. We're not showing up and taking people's stuff. These codes have been in since, people, Tony, you guys were on council in 1996. These codes have been around, some of them longer than that. And I agree with Angie wholeheartedly. We have to enforce them, and part of that enforcement is starting the conversation. The conversation leads us different places, so.
I feel like a lot of homeowners, or a lot of them are elderly, and I think they just feel threatened. Personally, my grandpa's got several letters, and he was so upset that he thought he would have to sell his house because the city was gonna condemn his property, and.
But nobody did that, though.
No, but
That
that's
wasn't
where
the
they're coming
reality.
from, so I had conversations with him, I had conversations with the city to try to help that situation,
Mm-hmm.
but I think a lot of people just feel threatened, and that's why they're not willing to work with us. So how do we fix that? How do we make
Yeah.
it not so threatening?
I don't disagree, potential, how, I don't wanna pretend how anybody can see anything, but I think our clearance rate with code violations is still over 92-ish, 3-ish%. So the greater majority of people aren't threatened by them and are seeing them as a way to move forward. And we've had recent examples where people have come to council, stated their case, said they were willing to work with us, and then didn't end up working with us, or didn't return phone calls after that, and now they're gonna get another letter because they didn't fulfill what they said they were gonna do. I mean, there's only so much we can do at the end of the day. When we've said a number of times, our email addresses have been put on public Facebook pages. If people want to get a hold of us and have conversations, I don't think anyone here is hidden from those conversations. And I hate that somebody would feel threatened by those things. And I think after a conversation with us, I don't think they would feel threatened anymore.
How do we engage? I know we're offering to come to the council meeting or.
We're literally sending them certified mail. I don't know how else to get their attention
I
other
just
than
feel like
that.
we need something, a better process, or inviting to not this meeting, but just meeting with you and them, so it doesn't feel as threatening as coming to council, or, I don't know what the answer is, but I think.
I think
we
if
need
somebody
something.
requested that, I don't think anybody would hesitate if they said they wanted a smaller group meeting. I think we could figure that out, but we haven't had that request yet, so.
So maybe we offer that. Can we offer that?
I think everything we're doing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is well in line with what other communities do. We're not being stricter or colder or anything else than any other community.
So a lot of communities actually have shorter time periods.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
that's kind of up to the city and deciding how that works out.
One of the properties in
Did you have a
this,
thought you
oh,
wanted to
sorry.
share?
No, I think it's,
my bad.
the whole point of the letter is to create urgency. I'm sorry if that ever makes anybody mad or upset or it pisses people off, but the whole point of this is to create urgency. They need to reach out to the city, they need to reach out to me. And if somebody does call me, I'll work with them on time. That's no problem. So I'm always willing to work with anybody. But they also have to reach out and contact the city or contact me.
And one of the properties in question as well, agreed actually to build a fence at one point around their property during the last cycle of code enforcement, and that fence never got built either. So at some point, like Angie said, you're given an opportunity, I don't know what else to do. I mean, other than be as open and honest and transparent as we possibly can be, and we have that, so.
Council, any further discussion or comments, questions? Otherwise, motion second. Or I should say proceed if you would like to.
Motion to approve resolution 2026-24, resolution approving nuisance abatement.
Second.
Warnke,
Aye.
Adler,
No.
Ordus.
Aye.
Schaefer,
Aye.
Hess.
No.
Letter E, third and final reading of ordinance number, Harrison, thank you very much. Third and final reading, excuse me, of ordinance. Let me start this again.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
Me to stick around for any.
you're welcome
questions you
to,
guys
if
may
you,
have or not. It's up to you.
council, do you have any questions for him afterwards or anything? If any citizens, would you have any questions for him or comments afterwards?
Yeah, I think exactly. I think it's exactly what Tony said, the terminology. You get down to a legal situation and now we're getting hung up on terminology, nuisance. I'm not mad at you, or what I've called you and told you, hey, this is what I got. I can shuffle things around because I use this stuff on a daily basis.
I was referring to after Mr. Todd, but not directly. Yeah. So, yeah, if,
I'm not mad at these guys.
yeah, if you guys want to continue that, by all means, but we'll proceed forward at this time, so. No, thank you all very much. We'll start again, letter E, third and final reading, of ordinance number 2025-14, amending the code of ordinances for the city of Elkhart, Iowa by amending provisions pertaining to subdivision regulations. We've had some debate and comments on this in the past. Is there anything additional, or just, we want to just keep her moving?
move to approve third and final reading of ordinance number 2025-14.
Second.
Wow, second Schaefer.
That equals where it at.
I'm doing my best, Warnke,
Aye.
Adler,
Aye.
Fordice, Schaefer,
Aye.
Hess.
Way better than I was like 3 days ago.
Do we want to adopt then the ordinance? Do we have the third reading,
We can do that.
It's,
or is that technically, well, technically the third reading would be adopting as well? wouldn't it?
yeah, no, so it's adopted.
Okay,
Yay.
my apologies, I'm used to us waiting the second, third, and then, gotcha, my apologies.
Yes.
F. Third and final reading of ordinance 2025-15, amending the code of ordinances of the city of Elkhart, Iowa by amending provisions pertaining to site plan information required.
Motion to approve the third and final reading of ordinance 2025-15.
Good with that. Second, Adler. Warnke,
Aye.
Adler,
Aye.
Fordice, Schaefer,
Aye.
Hess.
Aye.
Aye. G, second reading, of ordinance 2026-1, amending the code of ordinances of the city of Elkhart, Iowa by amending provisions, chapter 107 pertaining to recycling rates.
Can, is it possible to make a motion to approve the second and waive the third reading of ordinance 2026-1?
We'd have to do it in multiple steps. We could approve the second, we could then, motion to waive and adopt.
Do that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah,
Do
do that.
Motion to,
that.
motion to approve the second reading of ordinance 2026-4.
Second.
Okay, Warnke.
Aye.
Adler.
Aye.
Fordice.
I
Schaefer. Yes. Good enough.
You did beat me.
Okay.
motion to waive the third reading and adopt ordinance 2026-1.
Second, aye.
Second, for Fordice.
Wrong track.
Now this is where you get your turn, Travis.
Aye.
Adler.
Aye.
Fordice. Schaefer.
Aye.
Hess.
Who was the second?
Me.
Yes.
Immediately.
Fordice.
I won.
Travis had to vote by his first
I
name.
can't do it.
Aye.
Oh, he beat me too. I was gonna say that. Okay, regroup.
H.
H, possible action regarding 2026 citywide cleanup day. I had asked this to be put on here just to give you guys some information and background of the survey that City Hall, Marissa, whomever put out. I think we had, June 6th, I think was the date that we had tentatively scheduled
But
a
we
couple
did
months ago.
secure that,
I
right?
believe.
I just wanna make sure we
Yes.
did
Yeah.
secure that. Okay.
The feedback here, I don't wanna say is mixed, but it's kind of mixed. It's people want it, but I'm gonna be very, very blunt here, so pardon me. People want it, but they don't wanna pay for it. Asterisk, we're paying for it indirectly regardless, because the city's paying for it, which then comes out of the funds, which then taxes and all the fun stuff,
Which causes rates to go up.
which causes rates to go up.
Pay to use it.
Which then they would be interested in paying for by use. So I guess it comes down to the question of, how do you guys wanna handle it this year? Do you still want to, and we, because we're all whatever paying for it, do we wanna still just do okay, we're gonna do a blanket because that's what we had kind of proposed and talked about initially, we're gonna have it, we're gonna do another blanket, it's gonna be curbside. Do we wanna pivot, do we wanna do dumpsters and you gotta bring it in? I know it was pretty popular and the results show here that people would prefer curbside. Do we wanna shift it right away immediately this year to, okay, it's a pay, if you use it, you pay for it. How then do we structure that? Is it okay, overall it costs $1,800 and that's split between all the residents? How would that look? How would that work? A lot of questions thrown out there, but
I, for one, am in favor of being an overall taxpayer cost, that the city pays the bill, that we do the curbside. The reason I don't like the dumpster side is you're gonna have to schedule a public works person to be there on the weekend. And we have no place to put a dumpster where it can't get reached at 24/7. And you're gonna get stuff in there that should be going to the landfill. You're gonna get hazardous waste materials, you're gonna get tires, you're gonna get refrigerants. So if it's curbside, at least the group doing the pickup is gonna say, no, we're not taking that today. And it's still there for the homeowner to deal with like they should have dealt with in the first place. So secondly, I'm usually not one that wants to incur a cost onto the city, but this helps the entire city. If we want to make sure people aren't storing unsightly things in their backyards, then let's make it as easy as possible for them to put it out on their curb. And maybe some of these notices that get sent out, we can, do a follow-up and say, hey, looking at the pictures, your stuff isn't that big. If you put it out on the curb by this date, it'll get taken away from you. So, because I think a lot of it, a couple of years ago, when you first, or last year, when it was first proposed, that's why I said, made the comment, not everyone has a pickup truck. Some people would probably be willing to take this stuff out to the dump if they had a vehicle to take it out to the dump. If we can make it as easy as possible for this stuff to get thrown away properly, I say we do that. And because it helps the overall look of the community.
Ditto.
Do it.
We discussed those exact same things last year about with enforcement ramping up, this would be a good way to start to get rid of some stuff, and Tony's right, when we did bring it down to the dumpster, we did have staff there, they were not too thrilled, because there was overtime, and then Tony was also, I remember very well, there was a lot of stuff in there that wasn't supposed to be in there, and we ended up having to pay, the city had to end up paying to dispose that separately, which caused a lot of problems, so I'm in agreement with Tony for all the reasons he said.
Do it.
Yep, ditto.
so the June 6th is locked in then. I guess a question for discussion later, I guess council keep in the back of your minds then is if we are going to continue to provide this service as a city, which I guess, I know we've had some data in the past, and Katie, I don't know if you remember off the top of your head, what do other cities around us, either similar size cities just in our region, do they offer it? Is it the citizens pay for it? And then before you answer that one, do we would want to offer this then based off of that annually, biannually, every third year? Because, you know, I'm just round numbers here, $3,000 a pop per year. Yeah, we can budget for that, but is that necessary annually or?
I think we can probably go biannually.
Yeah. Yeah, so most communities assess with a small fee on the monthly utility bill, and it's like separated out for spring cleanup fee. And that's how most do it. So whether you participate in it or not, every residence has that fee.
There was a Facebook post, and like, I hate to pull data from Facebook because it's so stupid sometimes, but it was a good conversation. I can't remember whom it was from City of Ankeny that put out there that the similar conversation came up with them recently of, do you want us to continue to do it? Do you have the same exact basic thing going on here? And the overwhelming response of the commenters was, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. I'd be happy with paying 25 cents extra or what have you, or pay per use or things of that nature. So granted, that is a larger city or much larger city than we are.
Yeah.
And you know, lots of factors in there. I acknowledge that, but just something to think about as far as, you know, the money's got to come from somewhere. And is it per the user who takes advantage of it, or do we just blanket coverage it? I get, Tony, what you're saying. I understand, acknowledge all those things, but just things to think about, not a discussion or decision we have to come up with tonight, but things to think about as we move forward with having these days and how often and when and et cetera. So
I think biannual would be pretty smart, and as far as the payment goes, I mean, we are asked from time to time from Betterment, you know, if we have any projects, maybe it's something they would consider funding every 2 years, if we ask nicely. I know that with part of the gas station project, he's agreed to donate 1 cent for every gallon of gas sold back to the city, for purpose, you know, we can name a purpose or he can name a purpose, but maybe this is something we could use that money for, whether it goes into this or parks or something else. So I think there's ways to generate revenue for it, specifically if it's every other year. I think that makes it, that we were not asking for $3,000.
more palatable,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So, okay, so
And if we do it, when we put the communication together, let's get a solid time from whatever service we use, what their start time is.
That was
that was a big hiccup last year.
Yeah.
We told the start time, and then they showed up 2 hours early.
Yeah, they were bright.
They were.
Yes, I do believe that there's a tires drop, that there's going to be a separate dumpster. That is just going to be placed somewhere over by the city shed, I believe, for tires and tires alone. Not
Correct.
tires and metal and tires and concrete and tires and junk and
Correct,
tires
it's
and
only certain types of tires.
Yeah.
So.
round one's at their core, but anyway, jokes aside. Okay, so you guys are good with proceeding with the June 6th date of it?
Yes.
Yes.
All that good stuff,
Yep.
okay. So, do you need an action from us then, Katie? It's already set and scheduled.
Let's just do an action, just.
We're not changing anything, so, so I will propose, and whoever wants to
What do
take
you
it.
do? You can take bids on the 2 garbage or
I
three
already
garbage
did that.
We've already, that has already done, back in, I forget if it was, what month it was that we,
It's like December.
Yeah, I reached out to 2 companies.
and Ankeny Sanitation did come back at the lowest at that time.
doesn't make any difference, I just.
No, and
We got the other, so it's fair to both.
no, and correct, and I know you had proposed that last year, I recall you proposing it as well, and I know we did that this time, and so yes, that has happened, yes, we're going with the lower bid at this time, so. So whoever wants to
I move that we
Yeah.
establish a city cleanup day for June 6th, 2026. Date and time be published by city staff.
upon confirmation of provider,
Upon confirmation of provider.
something like, I don't
Something like that.
Okay.
know, leave that, strike that last part.
Well, do we want to include paid for by the city, or do we even need to?
We don't need.
We don't need to. Okay, just want to make sure.
Need a second for that then?
Second.
Warnke,
Aye.
Edler, Fordice.
Aye.
Schaefer.
Aye.
Hess.
Aye.
Very good. On to number 10 then, reports of elected officials, city staff and standing committees. I believe we're all in agreement to brief.
Very brief.
Bullet points, split points. Get this Warnke, go ahead, sorry.
Planning and zoning committee did not meet in March. This month, there's nothing to speak on, but as Katie mentioned in her report, there's some future possible annexations coming into town, so hopefully April is full of planning and zoning items.
Let's plan on it.
I hope so.
Is that
Cemetery board did not meet in February, they'll meet again in May. ECBC, I went to their meeting last week, everything is moving forward with the city festival. I did talk to Mary Lou Duffy with Parks and Rec about, seeing if they can reach out to Cambridge Library, to see if they could have bring something and pull it in the parade, or have like a mobile library at the park, for the duration of the festival. So she's gonna have their new member work on that and then get back to me on that. Waste management, I attended part of their meeting, as I had another meeting right after that. 90% of their meeting is about constructing new cells and stopping the old cells and things like that. So there's not a whole lot to report back on that.
A couple bullet points to add to yours. I think you said this one, the cemetery board, their next meeting is May 21st at City Hall. The Memorial Day service, we'll meet before then again, but May 25th, and then we, the city will advertise for the upcoming cleanup day in April. I don't know if that's been, that date is set or not. Do you had to know that off the top of your head?
April 20th.
It was in my email yesterday.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. I looked at it yesterday.
I know, I thought I remember seeing it somewhere, but I couldn't recall.
April 25th, 2026, 9 a.m.
And we will advertise that accordingly for volunteers or whomever may want to show up and help out with that. So, good. Mr.
If
Fortas.
they need a mobile speaker for their thing, let me know, I have one. I know when I went in the past, it was our teacher, and I have one
Yeah,
that they can
they
use.
rent it or something.
I have one, they
Okay.
can borrow it, that's fine. It's got a microphone and everything.
Very good.
Yeah, I mentioned the gas station stuff already, I won't do that again. The 1 cent per gallon thing was a neat thing that I got confirmation on today. We'll figure out what that looks like after the first year, and if the business is going as well as he hopes for it to go after the first year, he will raise that up to 2 cents per gallon, donated back to the city, and depending on gallons sold, there's other communities that have seen as much as $10,000+ come from those types of things in the past. So that's kind of neat. We sat in on a county planning session, a few of us, last Friday here at City Hall, which was really interesting. We got to represent Elkhart. We got to talk about what we would like to see more from the county. We got to give some feedback on what our city, thinks about certain issues and inefficiencies, efficiencies. It was good. It was, giving some good feedback, and he advised us of some next steps. If any of you guys want to provide more detail on that, for the sake of brevity, I will not. But I thought our city was very well represented. Alaman was there as well with a contingent of folks. And I think if the county moves forward with some of the things that, we were suggesting and other communities have been suggesting, I think it's very promising. And I think that could help us with funding sources. I think it could help with our trail connections that we talked about, but that's all completely speculative at this point. The last thing is, I also briefly mentioned trying to pull the developers together sometime in May. That's been driven by multiple different things. One was the potential of the new 80-acre industrial next spring. I talked to Travis Sisson about that. I mentioned a little bit at the last meeting. He's expecting some things to start rolling by next spring. There's been a request for information about a 40-ish acre plot south of that from Dave, who owned this 3T's land in that Wintersteiger area. And then Kimberly as well has reached out recently about some things that they've been presenting to the Greater Des Moines area partnership, I want to call it, some different business ideas or different industrial site plans, including railroad, because they're getting a lot of requests around that. So trying to bring all those interests together, obviously trying to hand some of that over to you, Travis, with the P&Z responsibility. So I'll let you know when that is, let Mike know when that is as well. To review land maps, review CIPs, talk to the developers, see where they're going next, making sure that we're all on the same page. And I think doing a better job as a city of setting terms as opposed to having terms set for us, making sure that they're aware of connection fee districts and different projects we have going. Because as we rip up one side of town, we talked about it earlier, right, ad nauseum. As we develop more, it makes sense if there's overlap, if there's pumps that need to get put in, if there's pipes that need to get laid, that we can defray as much of that from the city cost as possible, so that we do not have to continue to raise rates as the city grows as quickly as we have in the past. So very promising, no date set yet, but we're working on it. It's herding cats to try to get a lot of people put into one place at one time, and I'll keep you posted on that. So
very good. Thanks. A couple quick notes from me. I would say with planting season upon us, plan on me not being here next month, so prep.
I will be well.
use it well. So, says to echo Fordyce, added on the county planning meeting thing that they had. If I'm honest, a little disappointed to see the turnout. I'm glad to have people there, but was a little disappointed that there weren't more people in attendance. Part of my feedback was if you want these feedback sessions, host them when people are actually available, not in the middle of the day on Friday before spring break. Whether that was noted or not, I don't know. Let's see here. Speaking with Public Works directly through the last couple snow events and everything, phenomenal job. I'm just gonna say they did a kick-ass job with that last big snow event that we had. I'm not talking about 2 nights ago, I'm talking about like 2 weeks ago, whatever it was.
Yeah.
They had started at 8 o'clock roughly, approximately, and by 10:30 they had made a full lap or two around the entire city and had at least cleared as far as they could reasonably, curb to curb. So, awesome job for those guys. Really do appreciate everything that they do. I know they've, got a lot of stuff going on with water treatment plant and miscellaneous other things as well. So, I have something else that I was going to say and I don't remember what it was. I should have written it down. That happens all the time. I will come back to it if I think of it. Ms. Schaefer.
Cool. Parks met, we had a very successful, I would say again, Puzzlepalooza, so that was great. Got newest member on board, still working on, I think, just getting the whole feel laid out of the new group and making sure we're all on the same page and know what direction we're headed and everything else. Got some great stuff in the works. There's a fishing derby conversation coming up. They're also just super interested in community feedback as far as what things people are wanting to see. So working on how to go about getting that feedback and the best opportunities to seek such feedback. So if you have suggestions, please reach out to Parks, and also working on figuring out a system for if people are wanting to volunteer for things, a way of having something in place so that we know who wants to volunteer for what and when, and making it easy to access people. So some really cool stuff coming through them right now, and then just continuing to work on relationships with both ECBC and the ball field to do whatever we can to work together as a community in those particular facets. So I normally talk more and I'm not going to.
I remember what I was gonna say because I had it pulled up on my screen right in front of me, so. Agree or disagree with reasons or whatnot behind it. Special election coming up on the 31st of this month. There will be a meet the candidates night, as we talked about earlier, sometime next week, to be determined exact dates and time between the two candidates. We will post that information once we have it. 7 to 8 p.m. polls are open on the 31st here in this building, so, yeah, just wanted to point that out, so, Mr. Hess.
Really nothing, I did attend that meeting Friday as well. I would caution that that was strictly an informational gathering meeting, and there won't be any immediate impact.
Correct.
Or
Definitely not immediate.
fruit to be had from it, so.
Correct.
But the project manager that was here, I do think he was earnest in getting the feedback. And a lot of our feedback was a repeating theme was, remember you have constituents that live outside of the urban area in the county. So, and I do think that message was received. Fire department, they've had a couple of meetings. I missed one because I completely forgot about it. I went, because the Thursday I went, I thought I was very angry because it was everybody myself. So, and then, one meeting I did attend, they did some tabletop reviews of recent calls. And then they did some practice with their extraction equipment that they have, it's available to them, so. Again, really, I'm really taken by how well that group interacts with one another. And with a job that requires that type of coordination, it's important that those people like one another, and it's very evident they work well with one another, so city's in good hands with the fire department. That's all I got for you.
Great to hear.
I'll just provide some quick updates, let me know if you have questions, but I sent some information this past week about the water treatment plant, what's going on over there. They were on site several days last week, trying to help us clean stuff out, troubleshoot, so I will keep you posted on that. We've also discussed a plan trying to figure out storage for the water tower because we are hoping to get that drain that in May of this year so that the interior can be cleaned out. However, there's some logistics to figure out first with fire coverage and water storage. I sent out an update regarding the legislative actions that are going on at the state level. The Senate bill, did proceed forward, but the, initial feedback from the legislators is they have been appreciative because there have been a lot of city managers in Iowa who have helped provide proposals to them to help their solution. So that relationship is in good standing, and I'll let you know if I hear more. Other than that, I did include a summary of our interest that we took in over the year, so that was an improvement, and I think that will get even better since we now moved a lot of money over to iPay, so.
Very good. Yeah.
I just continue to improve the accounting, you know, as far as new software and learning new things that I can do.
Excellent.
Yeah, I signed up for IMFOA also.
Mr. Massey, one more.
Yeah, I did want to mention, people who are viewing this on the recording. It had been mentioned in previous meetings about some of the, wall hangings that had been not present, and those are starting to come back. We do have the list of the veterans on the wall here, as well as some of the other veteran-related materials. So I don't know if we still have some more to go, but.
Yeah, the main concern is
That's
the
being,
photos. and-
that's being worked on, so I just wanted to, for people who have wondered about that, and watch the videos, they are now, some of that material is present here again.
Excellent.
In the community center.
Excellent. Mr. Kappas, anything to add?
As stated, P and Z did not meet this month, so I don't have anything to report on that. I had planned to attend the Polk County planning session, and by the time it came along, I forgot. And then I remembered about 2 days ago and said, oh well.
There is a,
That happens.
there is a QR code available on the city's website and a link as well. It's on the Facebook page specifically. I don't know if we have it nested on the website or not, but on the Facebook page, for those who want to provide feedback as well, you can do it that way. So check out the city's Facebook page, the official Facebook page for any of that information. So if we have anything else, we have a park trip. Did you want to add anything? You happy with that? Nope. Okay, I figured, but thought I'd ask. If nothing else, on to number 11. Don't rush me. You always do it. Motion to adjourn. Warren, Adler.
Aye.
Forrest. Aye. Schaefer.
Aye.
Hess.
Sure, all right.
We're adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Holy cow.